Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Goku. If you're new here, make sure to watch part 1 first, the link is in the description. Let's start the story where we left off. Wait, did I just? Realization hits Midoriya. He lets All Might's secret out. Thankfully, however, it seems Bakugo didn't notice as he spoke while continuing to walk. I don't care, I'll be stronger than you. I'm going to be number 1, damn it, he shouts. Izuku just stares off at him as he walks away, glancing down at his fist he clenches it, and thinks to himself, challenge accepted Kakin. Sun sat in his new workplace, thinking to himself had become one of his more active hobbies. With a sigh he slid down into a seat. What the hell am I doing? I should be at the restaurant helping mom and dad. Even though they had been ecstatic to hear of his new job, he couldn't help but feel like he should be there instead. He had a responsibility much like All Might, however, making sure each and every one of his students reaches their potential. It's kind of funny actually, I'm their teacher, but I'm only a year older than them. Sun laughs to himself. Bringing his thoughts back to Midoriya, the kid really has come far, hasn't he? It seems like almost yesterday that the boy couldn't throw a punch without tripping over himself. Now he can stand toe-to-toe with Sun when he equaled Midoriya's power. Sun smiled and continued to look over his paperwork from the day before. So far the person who would need the most help in terms of combat training would be Mineta. The purple-haired kid was lucky Sun managed to talk Aizawa out of expelling him. For now. The kid did have potential, as much as it pained Sun to say it. He would have to get over some of his tendencies, however. It wasn't hard to catch him trying to get a good look at the girls in his class. That would have to be the first thing Sun discussed with him. It's at this time that All Might comes into the office and powers down. Yagi, good timing. Sun says, I want to run a few things with you. Of course, young Sun. All Might exclaims. The two go over Sun's observations, All Might making suggestions when he felt necessary. It wasn't long before a schedule for independent sessions and class sessions was worked out. Mineta would be taught independently from the rest as he would require the most focus, and hopefully Sun could break his perverted streak. Everyone else was split into 4 groups based on skill level. The lowest rank would get the most attention from Sun and All Might, while the highest would receive the least. Homeroom is about to start, young Sun. Perhaps you should get to your class, All Might says. Glancing at the clock, Sun sees he has 5 minutes until the first bell rings. He quickly thanks All Might for the help and leaves the room. With a minute to spare, Sun walks through the sliding door and into the classroom of 1A. What he saw surprised him, however. Mina is held back by Midoriya, Yurikara, and Ida. Bakugo being held back by Kirishima, Sato, and Zero. Everything goes quiet in the room when they notice Sun standing at the front of the classroom. He opens his mouth to say something but closes it. What the hell happened here? I recommend you all sit down. You have 30 seconds before Aizawa-sensei arrives, and he would not take this scene lightly, Sun finally says after gathering himself. Everyone scatters, including Mina and Bakugo. The pair cast dirty glances each other's way. This is gonna be a fucking day. Sun's sweat drops. 10 minutes earlier, Class 1A, Izuku and Mina had met up with Ida and Yurikara when they came into school. Everyone seemed to be in a rather good mood. Ida had a small smile. Yurikara was bubbly along with Mina, who had actually woken up on time today. And Izuku, he felt better than he had in years. After yesterday, he felt like he could actually do this, that his dream wasn't out of reach anymore. No, it was closer than ever. They arrived in the classroom where nearly everyone was already present. The 4 friends found their seats and began to chat idly while they waited on their teachers to show up. They didn't notice Bakugo stand from his desk and walking over to the group. Izuku did, however, and felt a wave of dread wash over him. Flashbacks from middle school hit him, and Mina noticed the change. She glanced to where Izuku was looking. Once she saw Bakugo, she went to get in his way and tell him to piss off, but was shoved back into her seat by Bakugo, who then grabbed Izuku out from his seat and shoved him against the wall. What the hell was that you did yesterday, Deku? Bakugo growled out. I used my quirk, Bakugo, Izuku stammered out. You really think I fell for that little speech you gave yesterday? I'm not fucking stupid, Deku. I don't care how you got a quirk. I'm still going to be number 1, and I'm going to crush you, Bakugo says. It's now that Mina gets a hold on the blonde teen and shoves him away from Izuku. Yurikara and Ida, who had been frozen by shock, now stood, Yurikara and Izuku holding back Mina while Ida stood in front of them, keeping Bakugo from getting to them. Bakugo shouts something and goes to push Ida out of the way when Sato and Kirishima grab him from behind. Zero gets in front of him and keeps him from moving. Ida then focuses on trying to calm down Mina and de-escalate the situation. Then the door opens. Everyone freezes as they expect to see Aizawa enter the room. Sun stood in his place, however. He wore a look that somehow said, "What the fuck, and I don't really care" plastered on his face. He quickly told everyone to take their seats as Aizawa would be here soon. Quickly everyone followed the order, a couple more angry than others. Sun let loose an uneasy sigh as homeroom finally came to a close. He couldn't catch a break for long, however, as the battle trial was today. It wouldn't be long before All Might came into the room to announce this. He has always been one for theatrics anyway. Well, he could be excited to see everyone's hero costume, however. It would give him some insight on everyone's personality. The tension in the classroom had lessened to an extent, but it was still present, however. He would have to talk to Izuku about it later on. "I am coming through the door like a normal person," All Might exclaims, bursting through the door. Everyone's reaction was pretty expected: shock and awe. More awe from Mina and Izuku, since they knew he would be teaching here. All Might begins to explain to everyone that they will come to Training Ground Beta, but they have to put on their hero costumes first. Sun hands out the respective cases to everyone and leaves to change into his own costume. All of his family that's related to Goku wears a variation of his GI, only direct descendants wear a copy of it. He wouldn't be participating in this trial, but Sun supposed Izuku would appreciate seeing the clothing. Everything was weighted as well, just like Goku's had been. After getting a feel for the new weight, Sun joins All Might waiting for the class to get changed. Momo is the first to leave. Her costume is very revealing. Definitely training Mineta as far away from her as possible. Mina leaves next, and is clad in something that looks like it came out of the 1980s. A skin-tight leopard print bodysuit with fur on the neck. Bakugo comes out with what seems to be grenades on his hands. A little threatening for a hero costume, but hopefully it has some kind of use. Sato, Siro, and Kirishima leave next. The latter is bare-chested in a costume that resembles an older hero by the name of Crimson Riot, a hero that Sun has a large respect for. Sato is just in a yellow bodysuit and Siro wears a black and white bodysuit, but with a streamlined helmet. Everyone else comes out in a cluster. Sun can't keep up with it and eventually gives up. Izuku is the last to leave as he runs out from the entrance. The suit isn't skin-tight, it's mostly green with black seams. He wears a hood with a face guard strapped around his neck, and two pointed ears. It wasn't obvious to anyone but All Might and Sun, but to them, it was way too obvious. The pair stifled their laughs, as they both thought so obvious. All Might quickly goes over the rules, deeming Sun to be the referee for the matches. This would allow him to intervene if the students got out of control, and if someone was in danger of seriously getting harmed. Soon he drew lots for the matches, much to both Sun and Izuku's dismay. Izuku was against Bakugo and Ida with Yurikara as his teammate. Izuku was in full mutter mode as he thought over strategy for the upcoming fight. Bakugo was definitely going to come straight for him. Sun had told him yesterday that the two of them were evenly matched, so it wasn't guaranteed he would win if he took him on alone. Yurikara's quirk wouldn't be much help, as he could use his explosions to propel himself once he was floating. It would be better if she went after Ida. He would be very limited in his movements if he was floating. Quickly thinking of a plan, he turned to Yurikara. "Alright, I have a plan." Trail starts. As soon as All Might signaled to start, Yurikara used her quirk on herself and Izuku launched her at the roof of the building. Bakugo was definitely coming for him, so he would be on the lower levels. Ida would stay with the bomb. Once Yurikara lands on the roof and quietly enters the building, Izuku takes his first step inside. Being as stealthy as he could, he creeps along the corridors. Everything is eerily quiet. His entire plan is banking on Bakugo coming after him. If he was wrong about this, then Yurikara would definitely be caught. Deciding to throw away the element of surprise, Izuku starts to run through the halls. Soon after, a hand appears around a corner and blasts an explosion towards the team. Izuku slides under the blast and activates One for All. "You've always been a pebble at my feet." Bakugo starts revealing himself. "Yet now you think you can stand on the same ground as me." "I don't think Bakugo, I know," Izuku says with surprising confidence. A now irate Bakugo launches himself at Izuku. As expected, he starts with a right hook. Izuku ducks under the incoming blow and grabs Bakugo's arm. He quickly slams the teen on the ground and jumps back to create some space. "I'm not your punching bag anymore, Bakugo," he shouts at the blonde teen. Bakugo shouts in rage as he gets up and chases after the now running Izuku. "Now that I have him in the open and chasing after me, I can hide and surprise him," Izuku thinks as he quickly ducks into a room. He slams the door behind him to buy a little time for himself as he hides behind a counter. The door bursts open as Bakugo uses an explosion to blow it off its hinges. "You think you can hide, Deku?" Bakugo shouts into the room. Silence is his only answer as Izuku waits for him to get closer. "These grenades aren't for decoration, you know?" Bakugo says casually. "They store my sweat, which I can release once full. I'll give you 3 seconds to come out and fight me before I blast you and this room to hell." Power up as much as you can tank the explosion. A voice says from everywhere, but nowhere. 3. What? Who are you? What's going on? Izuku thinks. Worry about that later, just trust me. The voice says once again. 2. With few other options, Izuku powers up the full 5% and leaps from behind the counter. Bakuga smiles maniacally, and All Might can be heard shouting from their earpieces. Everything seems to go in slow motion for Izuku as the pin is pulled and the explosion erupts from the gauntlet. Izuku quickly throws his guard up. The heat from the explosion is almost unbearable, but he manages to stay on his feet. When the smoke clears, Izuku stands tall. Burns covers his arms, but nothing major. Bakuga scowls and launches himself at Izuku once again. Izuku flattens himself on the ground and curls himself into himself. As Bakuga flies over him and launches an explosion directly at Izuku, Izuku tucks back and uses his arms as springs to throw himself in the air and kick Bakuga in the stomach. The explosion hits Izuku and both teens fly away from each other. Izuku hits the floor, cracking it, and Bakuga goes through the ceiling onto the next floor. Izuku quickly gets to his feet and runs out of the room. Izuku, I found the bomb. Yurikara says through their earpiece. Ida is guarding it just like you said he would be. Good, remember everything is relying on you, Yurikara. Izuku says back. Yurikara is hiding behind a pillar as Ida is getting into character. The girl would have laughed if she hadn't remembered their success is depending on her. Using her quirk on herself, she rises to the ceiling and slowly creeps her way over to Ida. The boy was still pacing around and looking at the ground, muttering to himself. It's now that another huge explosion shakes the building and Yurikara almost loses control of her quirk. Thankfully she doesn't and arrives over Ida. He's currently shouting into his earpiece at Bakuga. It's too late when he feels hands on his shoulders, and suddenly he's weightless. Sorry, Ida, Yurikara says, making a beeline for the bomb after completing the hard part of the mission. Izuku turned to face Bakuga. This surprised the other teen as Izuku threw a punch at one of Bakuga's gauntlets, destroying it. He couldn't risk taking another shot from one of them. Not to mention the building probably couldn't stand after another blast like that. Dropping into his stance, Izuku finally faces off against Bakuga for hopefully the last time today. Bakuga doesn't hesitate and throws a wild explosion in Izuku's direction. Now blinded, Izuku doesn't see Bakuga swing around behind him as the explosive teen unleashes another blast square in Izuku's back. Izuku flies across the room, but is quick to get back to his feet and dodge another of Bakuga's explosions. The two lunge at each other and prepare to land a finishing blow. Hero team wins! All Might shouts over their earpieces, causing both teens to stop for a moment. Bakuga is the first to react, shouting into his earpiece at Ida. Izuku finds a wall and slides down to the floor, resting his back against the surface, while Bakuga continues to rant. Izuku's injuries finally sink in. While minor, they were numerous and painful. Yurikara is cheering on the other side of his earpiece, but it turns into static. Soon there is a familiar figure in front of him who picks him up as he slowly passes out. Izuku's eyes bolt open as he's surrounded by darkness. He quickly does a spin to see everything in his vision. No matter where he looks, its inky blackness surrounds him. Not long after that, he hears the sound of footsteps approaching him. He turns and sees Sun, the more primal version of him. Don't panic. As soon as your injuries are healed, you will wake up, Other says. It was you who spoke to me, wasn't it? Izuku asks. Indeed. Sun states. Follow me. Sun turns and begins to walk away, and Izuku is quick to follow. How are you here? Izuku asks. When Sun lent you his power a couple months ago, I left a fragment of myself here, Sun explains. I knew he saw potential in you, but seeing it firsthand, the power you possess. It's incredible. Izuku stays silent as they continue to walk along in the inky darkness surrounding them. Maybe one day you'll give us the challenge we crave, Sun continues. What do you mean? Izuku asks. All Silents have a desire ingrained into themselves, the desire for battle, Sun explains. Over time, the ones who could challenge us slowly faded away, leaving the desire to fester and grow. So Sun was training me, so he wouldn't be bored anymore, Izuku asks, disheartened. Sun laughs and turns to face Izuku. He may have the most Scion blood in him compared to his family, but he doesn't possess the desire to fight like we do, Sun explains. Who is we? Why do you keep saying that? Izuku asks, confused. Unfortunately, you don't have enough time here for me to explain, Sun says. We've reached our destination. Look into the gate. Izuku peers into the darkness in front of him. At first, he sees nothing. Then he sees the same door again, still locked behind chains. He can feel a raw, primal power emanating from within the door. This is the seal to Sun's true power. If broken, we become one, Sun explains. Each chain represents a self-inflicted restraint. The first is self-control, the second is the chain of grief, the last is the chain of anger. If all three break, then he becomes more powerful than anything the world has seen in centuries. Izuku goes to ask another question, but comes back to reality quickly, as he sees Recovery Girl above him along with the real Sun. Sun looks at Izuku as he wakes up, and gives the boy a small smile. "Give us a little scare there, man. Thankfully you only passed out from exhaustion," Sun says. Izuku just nods, and Sun tells him he can watch everyone else's trials if he wishes. After that, Sun left to oversee another one of the trials. Izuku thinks back on everything he's seen. He places his face into his hand, and decides to ask Sun about it all sometime later. He needs to go back and watch Mina's trial after all. Upon entering the observation room, Izuku sees All Might speaking to the class while Sun stands idly to the side. It's still weird for the boy to see Sun in a hero costume. He could remember that some of the clothing was weighted. Something like that could help him with training in the future. Maybe he could ask who made it, and maybe he could get some for himself to help further the amount of one for all he could use. "Midoriya!" Urikara said, appearing at his side. Izuku jumped slightly at the sudden appearance. After calming himself down enough to speak and think clearly, Izuku addresses the young lady. "Eri Urikara, you did amazing in the trial. I'm sorry for putting that much pressure on you, but it was the only reliable plan I had in short notice." The young man rambles. "Young Midoriya, would you mind explaining your plan to the class?" All Might boomed from the front of the class. "Sure," Izuku says, panicking slightly. He takes a deep breath and speaks. "I knew that Bakugo would go after me initially, leaving Ida alone to guard the bomb. Urikara's quirk allows her to make anything she touches float, so I asked if she could make it to the roof if I threw her. When she agreed, that's when the plan fully came together. If I could keep Bakugo busy and make a bit of noise while doing it, then Ida wouldn't be completely focused on what's happening around him. Since Urikara can float, she can make virtually no noise traversing the room. Once Ida was floating, he couldn't move accurately. The rest explains itself." Everyone around him stayed quiet for a moment, and Izuku started to think he did or said something wrong. Soon everyone started asking questions. "How did you come up with that plan so soon?" Kirishima asks. "How could you tank those explosions like that, dude?" Zero yelled. "It seems we know who the MVP is then," Momo says simply. All Might nods and announces that Midoriya is the trial MVP. Once everything quiets down and Izuku answers everyone's questions to the best of his ability, he focuses on the screen in front of him. Aoyama and Mina versus Sato and Kota. Aoyama seems to have a laser-based quirk. Sato has a strength augmentation quirk, and Kota, well, Izuku isn't sure of the Quiet Team's quirk. Hopefully Mina remembered their training and her strategy or tutoring lessons from Sun. He was so focused on the screen that he didn't hear Urikara saying something to him. She got his attention by poking his arm. "Midoriya?" she asks. "Yeah?" he says, splitting his attention. "You're awfully focused," she says. "Like tunnel vision focused. I have a hobby of analyzing quirks." Midoriya laughs. "Oh, I was starting to think you had a crush on Mina." Urikara laughs. Izuku froze at that. He hadn't thought of that in a while. He had been too busy in the final month, and with school starting he hadn't had time to face that subject. Urikara saw his hesitation, and he could see a sly smile graced her lips. "Or maybe you do," she says low enough for only him to hear. "No, it's not like that," he whispers. "If I'm being honest, I don't know what I feel for her. Maybe you should spend some alone time with her, feel it out, you know?" Urikara says. Izuku lets a sigh loose as he silently agreed with her. He didn't want to be distracted by this in the future. He was scared too. She was way better than he deserved. She was beautiful, kind, enthusiastic, funny, proud of herself, determined. And Izuku was just Izuku. Nothing special about him. Not that he could see anyway. All Might calls for the match to begin. Mina uses her acid to start scaling the wall instead of using the front door. Aoyama does go through the front door, however. They converge on the third floor. They find a chair and use it to get into the ceiling of the building. Once there, even the cameras can't see them. Sato and Kota are both in the bomb room on the fourth floor. Sato stands firmly in the middle of the room, ready to down sugar and sprint at the intruders as they open the door. That wouldn't happen, however, as smoke could be seen rising from the floor, forming a smoky circle around the large teen. He looks confused as he squats down to get a better look at what's happening. Unfortunately for him, he falls through the floor and down another floor due to Mina weakening that spot with acid. Kota panics as their teammate falls through the floor. It's at this time that Aoyama appears behind the young teen, wrapping capture tape around the mute teen's wrists. Mina casually walks up to the bomb and places a hand on it, giving the nearby camera a smile with the peace sign. With all might signal, everyone inside the surveillance room cheers for the winners. Mina enters the room, and Izuku quickly rushes the young lady. "That was amazing, Ashido," Izuku says, practically bouncing in place. "Thanks, Midori," Mina says sheepishly. "Was that your plan all along? Or did you have something else in mind?" Izuku asks. "Well, I kinda figured Sato would bring the fight to us. But he stayed in the bomb room. Once we figured out which floor it was on, we climbed into the ceiling. We found a spot in the floor that had a hole in it behind Kota and Sato, and well, you saw the rest," Mina said cheerfully. Mina has her time in the spotlight as the next matches take place. Many students distinguish themselves during this time, others see the gap between them and their classmates. A few grow a fire underneath them, while someone sees it as hopeless. Once the class ends, Izuku excuses himself to talk to Sun. Upon finding the black-haired scion, Izuku approaches him. "Ah, Midoriya! You did fantastic in the trial today," Sun exclaims, throwing an arm around Izuku's shoulder. "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without your help," Izuku says. "Nonsense! What you did today was all you. I had nothing to do with it. Your brilliant mind and steel resolve in the face of an unyielding enemy won the match for your team," Sun exclaims. Izuku momentarily blushes from the praise, but quickly brushes it off and gets to the point. "I actually had a question for you," Izuku says. "I had a couple for you as well. I feel like both our questions are a little sensitive, so why don't we step into the lounge?" Sun says, walking in the direction of the staff lounge. After a short walk, the two sit down facing each other. Izuku shuffles a little, uneasy with bringing up his visions. He didn't really know how to explain it to him. He would probably think he was crazy. "Well, I'll ask my question while you get your thoughts together," Sun says. "About that little incident this morning in the classroom." Izuku winces slightly, as he figured this would be the topic of conversation from Sun. "Yeah, but Goku has always been more of a violent type. All he was doing was telling me he would be number one no matter what. He may have shoved Mina and grabbed me by the collar at the time," Izuku states. "But it's fine. He didn't hurt anyone." "Mina just really doesn't like bullies, and I guess that looked like bullying, and she didn't want anyone to pick on me, so she dashed." "I get it," Sun says. "Oh. Thankfully, it was me who walked in on the incident. Aizawa would have been livid. Anyway, I'll talk to Bakugo at the end of class today. I think he needs to understand that being a hero isn't about being number one," Sun says. "Anyway, your question." "Right. I've been having these visions. It's you but not you. He's like you if you lived in the wild. Anyway, he keeps saying you're holding yourself back from what you're actually capable of, and that you need to release yourself or something like that," Izuku says, the memories of the vision becoming hazy. Sun goes quiet, a far-off look in his eyes, as if he's thinking over something really hard. Izuku takes this as an incredulous look and begins to ramble. "Sorry. You must think I'm crazy, right? Having visions like that? Midoriya, remember how I have to take that medicine to keep my power in check?" Sun says. "Yeah? That's why. He's the essence of a scion. The primal part of me that wants nothing but battle and destruction," Sun says. "My medicine keeps him from taking over my body. I'm the only scion to be born like this. Nobody knows why, not even the briefs. Whatever you do, don't listen to him. If he were to take over, the damage he would do to satiate his hunger for battle would be incredible." Izuku swallows a lump that had formed in his throat. He talked to the very thing that handicaps his friend and mentor. The very thing that would kill someone for the sport of it if Sun's stories were to be believed. "However, in the event that does happen and I lose control, go to the briefs. They will know what to do and how to fix everything. You may need the help of the Dragon Balls. That in itself would be a life adventure without their help. I may introduce you sometime. They used to be a big corporation in the pre-Quark era. Due to many people trying to force their hand, they shut down and went into hiding," Sun says. Izuku nods and looks around nervously. "Now, since we have the heavy topics out of the way, you and Mina seem to have gotten even closer than last time I talked to you about this," Sun says, winking at Izuku. "It's not like that," Izuku shouts. "Sure it isn't, but do you want it to be like that?" Sun asks casually. Izuku hesitates for a moment, brain working overtime as he tries to think of something to say. "The fact that you hesitated means that it's crossed your mind before. You two should spend more time together and feel things out. Even though you practically spend all your free time together already. Maybe you should take her out again?" Sun suggests. Izuku nods and looks at the clock. Realizing that he'll be late for his next class soon, he excuses himself from the office and books it to his next class. Sun just chuckles as he leaves, pulls out a phone and scrolls to a contact within. After a couple rings, he picks up. Hey, Master Rashi. I was wondering if you had any tips for training other people. No, not one-on-one, more like a class. I see. What? No. Fine. I'll get it cleared with the school, but behave yourself, alright? Sun hangs up and sighs. This could either be great for the class or a huge disaster. After school, Izuku had been thinking over everything Sun had told him. Well, about Mina, that is, Izuku didn't have to worry about the others so long as he ignored him. Most of the last class had been him gathering the courage to ask Mina to hang out in a date-like setting. Even though he has been friends and regularly hangs out with the girl for the past 8 months just about, he still gets really nervous about asking her to do stuff. Hey Midori, what you thinking about? Mina asks, cutting off his train of thought. Oh, nothing much, Ashido. Izuku exclaims, blushing a little. Really? You were mumbling up a storm, she says. Well, do you want to hang out? Go watch a movie maybe? Izuku sheepishly asks. You didn't even need to ask Midori. I'm always down for some after-school fun, she exclaims. A huge flush of relief floods Izuku as they agree to meet up at the cinema after changing at home. He looks out the window one last time before leaving the classroom, absent-mindedly wondering how Sun's talk with Bakugu is going. With Sun and Bakugu, another explosion rings from the sparring area. Sun figured that with Bakugu's nature, he would be better at working out his problems during a fight. Like a certain someone the young scion had heard stories of. Breaking himself out of his thoughts, he dodges another explosion. So far, Sun's kept the match even. Not trying hard enough to hurt the student, but not going easy enough for the explosive teen to think he's not taking him seriously. So Bakugu, care to tell me about what happened this morning? Sun asks casually, dodging another explosion and throwing a punch of his own. Stupid Deku thinking he's better than me, and Raccoon Eyes getting in my way, Bakugu says through grit teeth. They do have names, you know. Those nicknames are quite degrading, Sun casually states. The pair tee off for another set of high-speed offense and defense, exchanging blows at a breakneck pace. Not like I need to know their names. They are all just extras in my story, Bakugu exclaims with an explosion to Sun's face. Sun reaches out from the smoke and grabs Bakugu's arm, throwing him over his shoulder and a good distance away from himself. You want to be number one? But not remember the names of those who helped you get there? Sun asks. I don't need any help, Bakugu exclaims. Everyone needs help. Even someone as strong as All Might needs help, Sun explains. Bakugu considers this for a moment before launching himself at Sun once again. I heard you're aiming for the number 1 spot too, Sun says, blocking. 'Cause I'm the best, and nobody is stopping me from getting there, Bakugu shouts. Is that what you think being a hero is about? Sun asks with mock confusion. Of course not. I just know I'm the best, so I'm going to be number 1, Bakugu shouts. I don't think we're getting to the root of the problem here, Sun deadpans. What problem? The fact that you think you need to be number 1 to be a good hero. Tell me, would you rather have your life in the hands of someone who is only a hero for the title and fame, or someone who would genuinely lay down their life to protect you? 'Cause that's what makes a hero real. You have all the tools you need to become something great in the hero world, yet you squander it with these unrealistic views on the word hero. I can help you become something great in this world, as can all of you, eh? Now the question is, will you let us help you? And will your views change? I know you won't change your mind overnight, but think it over, Sun says, ending the fight with a solid kick to Bakugu's midsection. Sun sits, taking a drink from his water bottle as Bakugu picks himself up. He instructs the teen to see Recovery Girl before heading home and makes his way home himself. Yep, this is going to be a long year, Sun thinks to himself as he leaves UA. Izuku and Mina left the cinema. The night had been going surprisingly well in Izuku's mind. After picking out a movie, one about aliens of course, the pair shared a good laugh and more than a few jump scares that Izuku jumped at a little more than he should have. You know, if the alien's weakness was fire, why didn't they lock it in an escape pod and fire it at the sun? Izuku ponders. Well, because it wouldn't make for an entertaining movie, of course. Mina laughs. Yeah, I suppose that's true. The pair walked in a comfortable silence for a little longer, eventually reaching the beach Izuku had cleaned not too long ago. The place was beautiful now, and with the sun just now dipping below the horizon, it was a sight to see. Izuku and Mina take a seat on one of the benches overlooking the ocean, and just enjoy each other's company for a minute. Mina, however, is a chatterbox and can't stay quiet for too long. You know, we should bring the class here sometime, she says. I'm sure they would like it. I don't think we should invite Mineta though, Izuku jokes. I totally agree, Mina deadpans, causing Izuku to laugh even more. I still can't believe you cleaned this place, in 10 months too, Mina exclaims. It was really about 9 months, but there were a few times where I thought I died from the work out of it. Izuku half jokes. There of course had been a few times where he thought his soul was leaving his body, but that's not important. That's even more impressive, Mina exclaims. Izuku just laughs and looks to the ocean once again. Maybe this would be his place from now on. A place where he could go and clear his mind and get away every now and again. Yeah, that would be nice. Race you to the beach, Mina shouts, running for the stairs. Wait, you got a head start, Izuku shouts, jumping from his seat. Last one there has to pay for our next date, Mina shouts, causing Izuku to pause. Date? Shaking his head quickly, Izuku jumps over the railing in front of him, landing with a roll and sprints to where the ocean meets the shore. The race was close, but Mina won by just a hair. She does a victory spin and cheers for herself. Izuku can only chuckle as he dusts off the sand that had gotten in his clothes from the roll. Why don't we go for a swim? Mina asks. I don't think that's a good idea, Izuku says awkwardly. Why not? Mina pouts. Well, we didn't bring any extra clothes or bathing suits, plus it's getting dark, Izuku says. Mina reluctantly accepts the reasoning, after Izuku agreed to go swimming at the beach at a later date anyway. The pair then make their way to the train station, talking and laughing the whole way. Upon arrival, Mina hugs Izuku, who nearly panics, but controls himself enough to hug her back. I had a good time, Midori. We need to do this more often, she says after pulling away. Izuku can feel the lingering warmth from the hug and already misses the contact. He finds himself surprisingly confident, however. Anytime you want to do this again is fine with me, Mina, Izuku says with a goofy smile. It's a date that Izuku, Mina says with $1 million smile. Next day. Konbu is many things, brave, kind, confident, but there is one thing that terrifies him to no end. Rumi is coming to visit today, dear, isn't that great? Sasha says to Sun's father at breakfast. I would say so, we haven't seen her since she made her debut a while back, Sun's father says absent-mindedly. It's at this point that Sun tells his parents goodbye for the day and rushes out the door before anyone can question him. Rule number 1 to surviving Rumi-sensei is don't stay in one place too long. He thinks as he sprints down the road. Hopefully she's not coming in this direction. Rule number 2 for surviving Rumi-sensei, don't run from her. Well, he can delay the inevitable all day. Running was better than waiting after all. Maybe he could get away scot-free? Where are you going, pretty boy? Rumi says, stepping in front of the teen. Ah, Rumi! Nice to see you, Sun practically shouts. Good to see you too. You weren't running from me, were you? Rumi says, stepping closer to Sun. No. I gotta get to work, he defends. Sure you do. UA doesn't start classes until 8. It's barely 7 right now, Rumi counters. Sun gulps as he prepares himself to do something that will surely sign his death warrant. As Rumi steps in the final distance and prepares to drag her pupil to the sparring grounds, Sun uses instant transmission to pop into the gate of UA beside Hound Dog. Rumi just smiles as she looks at the spot Sun was just standing at. You want to play like that, huh? She says, turning towards UA. Well, you can't run forever. With that, she leaps into the air. Her course is set for UA as she leaps from building to building. Sun sprints through the hallways and into the teacher's lounge. All Might and Aizawa are already present as Sun begins to search for a place to hide in a panic. Young Konbu, is something wrong? All Might asks. Yes. Rumi is after me, Sun shouts, trying to fit into the janitor's closet. Aizawa sits up in his sleeping bag, and All Might attempts to calm down the young scion. Rumi? As in the hero? He asks. Yes. Family friend. No time to explain. Time for hiding, Sun says, trying to slide underneath the couch. Ceiling vent, far corner. Screws are loose enough for it to pop off and go back into place, Aizawa lazily says, stretching. Sun thanks Aizawa with tears in his eyes and climbs into the vent. Don't mess that vent up. It's one of my nap spots, Aizawa says as he places the cover back on. It's at this point that fast footsteps could be heard approaching the room. All Might quickly buffs up into his hero form, and Aizawa climbs back into his sleeping bag. Rumi practically kicks open the door and eyes the two heroes over. Ah, Mirko! To whom do we owe the pleasure? All Might asks. Sun, where is he? She asks, ignoring the number 1 hero and walking around the room. Young Konbu? He hasn't come through here, All Might says nervously. Oh, Sun, you know you can't hide, Rumi says innocently. I can smell your fear. Scary, All Might thinks. When Sun doesn't answer, Rumi looks around the room once again and notices a loose screw on a vent cover. With a smile, she pretends to leave the room and remove the cover for the vent. Thanks for that, All Might. Aizawa, I don't think I can handle a sparring session with Rumi right now, he says, but stops as he is face to face with the rabbit hero. Rumi smirks as she drags the poor boy out of the vent and proceeds to drag him to the sparring area of UA. All Might looks at Aizawa in confusion as the other man just shrugs. How did she even get in? All Might asks. She requested a visitor's pass yesterday. I suppose Niza gave her one. You think he'll be okay? All Might asks. This is once again met with a shrug from Aizawa, who says something about Sun not coming into class today and having a talk with Rumi about behavior becoming of a hero. All Might just sits dumbfounded for a moment as he processes what just happened. 1 hour later. Izuku sits in class, the absence of Sun very apparent as the cheerful man counteracts Aizawa sensei's pessimistic demeanor. Aizawa says that the team will be showing a guest around UA today, and that if we see him, just keep walking. After getting that out of the way, the older man announces that they will be picking class representatives today. Everyone starts talking over each other, saying that they should be class president. Izuku just sits and thinks over everyone. We should put it to a vote, Ida shouts over everyone. Wouldn't everyone just vote for themselves? Sue asks. Well, that would mean whoever got more than one vote would deserve the spot, I suppose, Kaminari says. I don't care how you do it, you have the hour. I'm taking a nap, Aizawa says. After everyone agrees that a vote would be best, the class writes down their votes and lays them face down on Aizawa's desk. Ida, being the most trustworthy student in the class, walks up front and begins to write down everyone's votes. Surprisingly to Midoriya, he received the most votes with 5. He is absolutely stunned as he walks to the front of the room along with Momo, who got 2 votes. She nods to the green-haired teen, who dully nods back. Midoriya and Yayorozu are your class reps. Midoriya is president, since he got the most votes, and Yayorozu is vice president, Aizawa lazily states. While the voting had taken most of the class, and tallying the votes took the rest of the class time, Ida pounded his desk in disappointment as he received only 1 vote. He quickly shook off his disappointment and decided to support his friend completely. Bakugo had stayed surprisingly calm during the whole endeavor. He didn't look the least bit surprised as Izuku was named class president. Soon the lunch bell rang and everyone began to walk through the halls to the cafeteria. They heard something in the distance, someone yelling, and the rapid beat of 2 sets of footsteps. Sun rounded the corner soon after and took off in the direction of Class 1A. He looks like he's been fighting for 2 days, his suit ragged and ripped, multiple bruises covering his body, and blood coming from the corner of his mouth. Fuck, key kids! Fuck, he whispers as he continues to sprint. The young man barely gets past the class before his pursuer comes from the same corner Sun emerged from. It's Mirko, much to Izuku's surprise. He begins to shout a greeting and pulls his notebook out, but she flies by him. Get back here! We're not done yet! She shouts as the young scion yelps and begins to run faster. The class is left bewildered at the encounter. Mineta says something along the lines of lucky, while the rest of the class can only feel a confused sympathy for their teacher. They make it to the cafeteria and quickly begin to eat. Izuku sits with Mina, Yurikara, and Ida as they talk about the voting. I totally voted for Midori, Mina states, slinging an arm around the teen's shoulders. Me too, Yurikara says. As did I, Ida says. But why? Izuku asks. Ida is the first to answer, level-headed as always. It comes with his signature hand chops as well. Because you have displayed a level head and intelligence in stressful situations. Not only that, but you understood the true purpose of the entrance exam, he stated. You saved me from that giant robot, Yurikara says. You didn't expect me to vote for you? Dude, you're the most deserving of the title than anyone in our class. No offense, Mina says. None taken, both Ida and Yurikara say. Izuku begins to feel tears well up in his eyes as he looks at his friends. As he does this, a question pops up in his mind. Why do you guys want to be heroes? He asks. To carry on my family's legacy, Ida says. I come from a family of heroes. I want to join the family business after all. You're Ingenium's brother. I had my suspicions, but that confirms it, Izuku says. Yes, I am, and I'm proud of what my family has accomplished, Ida proudly states. Well, my reasons aren't as noble as yours, Ida, Yurikara says, rubbing the back of her head sheepishly. I want the money. Izuku looks at Ida to gauge his reaction, and then to Mina to do the same. Ida seems to be shocked, while Mina looks at understanding. My family doesn't make a lot of money. Even when I offered to use my quirk to help Dad out with construction, he always said he could handle it, and everything would be fine. But I know money is tight. I want to make enough money so that they don't have to work anymore and can sit back and enjoy their lives, she continues. That's not a bad thing, Yurikara. It's actually more noble than a lot of people's reasons. There's nothing wrong with wanting the money, especially when it's so that your parents can have a better life. It's actually very heroic, Izuku states. The young girl blushes and thanks Izuku. Ida continues on what Midoriya says, praising her on how her parents should be proud to have raised an amazing child. I'm doing it for fun, Mina says. At least that's what I would have said a year ago. Everyone looks to the pink teen as she continues. This dork right here showed me a new reason to be a hero, she says, gesturing to Izuku. He showed me that being a hero isn't about fame, money, or recognition. It's about helping people that can't help themselves, she says. Izuku smiles at her. Yurakara gushes about how pure that is, and Ida once again praises a student for having such pure reasons. This is when the party looks to Izuku. Like Ashido said, it's not about money, fame, or recognition. I want to be the kind of hero that makes everyone feel safe, the kind that saves everyone with a smile that says everything will be okay, just like All Might, he says. Everyone at the table is practically blinded by their pure-hearted classmate and praise him for being the adorable cinnamon roll he is. It's around this time that the alarms begin to go off, saying an intruder has breached security. All hell breaks loose. The group is separated, Mina lost in a sea of people, Ida almost being knocked down, and Yurakara pressed up against the window like Izuku is. Izuku quickly notices how it's reporters and not villains. Thinking quickly, he reaches out to Yurakara. Use your quirk on me, he shouts. Yurakara slaps his hand, and Izuku is weightless. He pulls himself out of the crowd and uses one of the people as a springboard to launch himself at the doorway. Stopping his momentum on the wall and floating above the crowd, he yells, It's just reporters. Everyone calm down. Everyone looks out the windows of the cafeteria and confirms the young boy's words. The crowd quickly calms down and files out of the room in a more civilized manner. Once the crowd is dispersed, Yurakara lets Izuku down and the party exits the room as well, with present Mike and Aizawa. If there's one thing Aizawa hated, it was reporters. Always getting in the way and bringing attention to things and blowing them out of proportion. They quickly get rid of the crowd and Aizawa looks to the gate, or what's left of it anyway. The structure itself was crumbled to nothing but dust. This couldn't have been your average reporter. What do you think, Shota? Hisashi asks. This wasn't some reporter desperate for a story. This is a warning, he says, looking off into the distance. Later that day, Sun enters the homeroom, tired, beaten, and a broken man. Mirko follows behind him, looking much better than the other. While she sports a few bruises of her own along with some minor cuts and burns, she looks fine. Most of the kids stare in wonder at the pro hero before them, Izuku himself included. Mineta begins to be a perv, but Sun steps in front of the poor boy. Don't say anything perverted about her. This is for your own personal safety, he says with all seriousness. Anyway, starting tomorrow you will train with me in forms of quirked and quirkless combat. After our trip for Aizawa's training, of course. Oh Sun, who's the strongest in this class? Mirko asks slyly. As of now, Todoroki. Now if we're talking about potential, Midoriya, Sun states. Izuku looks at Bakugo, expecting the blonde teen to begin shouting, but he surprisingly holds his tongue. While he still looks livid, it's much calmer than Izuku's ever seen him. Midoriya, Mirko says, walking over to the poor boy. Yes? He asks, blushing a little. How strong do you think he could get, Sun? She asks. Stronger than me, if he trains hard enough, Sun says before he can stop himself. Great, after the sports festival, you come and intern with me. I'll show you the ropes and teach you how to kick ass like I did Sun over there, even if he has gotten a little soft, which pisses me off, she says, glaring at the teen. Thank you for the offer, Izuku shouts. Mirko laughs at the boy's nerves. You are just adorable. Anyway, I'm going to say hi to your parents, Sun. Don't be late for dinner. I can't wait to have some more of your dad's cooking, she shouts. She gives the teen a hug before leaving the classroom, leaving everyone confused. Before you ask, she is a family friend. I've known her since I was a baby, and she trained me a lot when my quirk came in. Half-truth, he did spend half his time with Master Roshi training. Everyone nodded at this, too bewildered to do otherwise. Sun then told them who would be training with whom. Midoriya, Todoroki, Yayorozu, and Bakugo would be Division A, Ujiro, Sato, Mina and Toru would be Division B, Siro, Kaminari, and the final group would be made up of everyone else, excluding Mineta. When asked, Sun stated that the boy needed the most attention, and that he would be training him independently until caught up to Division C. Everyone nodded, while Mineta was upset he didn't get put in a group with girls. Having finished up his business, and with nothing left to say, he dismissed the class. Rumi always knew she was strong, stronger than all the idiots at her school anyway. She had the perfect quirk to back up her strength too. So why? Why does this child in front of her scare her? Her parents introduced her to him when she was 9. The uncle and his new wife had been in the area when they decided to come visit and introduce uncle's kid. He didn't look too impressive at first glance, but then again what 3-year-old does? But she could feel the raw power coming from him. It was emanating from the boy like water flows through a river, only to vanish when he took his medicine. She didn't like that, restraining his power when he was meant to be one of the strong. Rumi-chan! A 8-year-old son shouts, running over to the teen. As much as Rumi hates to admit it, she does have a soft spot for the boy. He radiated positivity and excitement, much like herself. Hey son! What are you doing here? Rumi asks. Mama and Papa went out. You guys are babysitting me. He shouts with excitement. As much as Rumi would love to play and fight with the young boy, she had work to do. She grimaced as she remembered another assignment Aizawa-sensei threw at them with little warning. That's great. I'm a little busy right now, but I should finish up in about an hour. How about you go and play with Auntie and Uncle, okay? She says. Son puffs out his cheeks in a pout and stubbornly stays put. They aren't as fun as you, he shouts. Rumi sighs and accepts that the boy is going to stay here. She opens her laptop to start typing away at the essay. It's over the pros and cons of teamwork and heroics. She just finishes up the opening paragraph when Son drags a beanbag over to the desk. What you doing? He asks. Schoolwork, you remember I'm in UA, right? The hero school? She asks. Yeah. The school where the strong people come from. He shouts, raising a fist in the air. Rumi's sweat drops slightly. Maybe she's starting to rub off on him. That's right. One of my teachers gave me a paper to do, and he's really strict, so I gotta have it done by tonight. She explains. Can I help? Son asks, pleading. Rumi tries to explain that it's a bit too complicated for him. Unfortunately for her, the boy is more intelligent than any 8-year-old has the right to be. She quickly relents and lets the boy help her. She couldn't say no to him after all. She's going soft, and she knows it, but it can't be helped. Together they managed to finish the paper in under an hour, and Son was actually more of a help than Rumi originally thought he would be. Can we go play now? Son asks, bouncing with excitement. Rumi just laughs as she takes the kid to the park. Everything quickly escalates into a competition between the two. Who can run the longest? Who can jump the highest? Who can hang upside down on the monkey bars the longest? Eventually they come home tired and ready for sleep. Rumi would see Son on and off in the following 7 years, constantly making sure he wasn't slacking off in his training. When she heard he was going to help teaching at UA, she had to admit she was a little curious. Son never did anything without reason, and with how loaded his family is, there is no reason for him to go work at a school full of brats. Now Rumi looks up from the dinner Son's father set in front of her. She looks at Son, who tiredly pokes at his food and wonders just when did he grow up so fast. The young boy she knew was replaced with a handsome young man. The only thing that remained the same about him was that goofy smile and the hair on his head. Everything else had changed with time. Rumi? Son's father asks. Oh? Sorry, what? She asks. Son's father just laughs and points to Son, who just looks at her a little aggravated. I asked how long you would be staying, he says. Oh, just a couple days. Vacation time for a hero never lasts too long, she says. I'm surprised you took any vacation time at all, seeing that you enjoy fighting so much, Son says. Well, everyone needs a break every now and again, she laughs. In all truthfulness, she only took the vacation time to see Son. Partly because of him working at UA, and mostly because she misses the boy. Being away from him all those years really made her appreciate him a lot more than before. She would be lying if she said she didn't care for the young man before her. Whether it be as a friend cares for each other or something more, she didn't know. All she knew was that she was happy to be around him again. Well, Rumi, you're more than welcome to stay in our guest room for as long as you want, Son's stepmother says. Why they keep that a secret, she doesn't know. She didn't even know Son's biological mother. She apparently died while giving birth to Son. They must have a good reason for it, however, so she's always kept quiet about it. Thank you, Auntie. I'll take you up on that offer, she says with a smile. The next day, Class 1A gathers around excitedly as they wait on the bus to arrive. Son stands with Midoriya. Rumi decides to use her visitor's pass again and spend the day with him and his class. While Son didn't exactly appreciate the distraction, he was relieved that she was here. At least, she could help him with their training, and possibly act as a mock civilian in today's training exercise at the USJ. Where do you think we're going, Midori? Mina asks. I honestly have no clue, but since it's Aizawa-sensei, there really is no telling where we are going to go, Izuku answers. That's true. Aizawa-sensei wouldn't take us somewhere without proper reason, Ida says. Either way, I think everyone will enjoy today, Sun says with a goofy grin. It's now that Izuku properly takes notice of Mirko. She stands near Sun with a fond smile on her face. Sun did say they were family friends. Izuku decides to gather his courage and approach the fierce rabbit hero. Mirko-sensei? Izuku asks. Mirko is broken from her thoughts as Izuku approaches her. She looks down at the surprisingly short boy that Sun took under his wing. Nothing really special about him. He did appear to have a solid physique. He didn't seem like the super strong boy that Sun made him out to be. Yes. Sorry, what's your name again? She asks. Midoriya, Izuku Midoriya, Izuku says with a little confidence. Oh yeah. What's up, Midoriya? She asks with her usual cheer. I was wondering if you could answer some questions for me, for my hero analysis notebook, Izuku says, withdrawing said notebook from his bag. A fan, huh? She asks slyly. Izuku blushes a little and starts to mumble a little. Rumi only laughs off the boy's dilemma. Of course, I can answer some questions for you, Midoriya, she says. The pair exchange words quickly and excitedly. Rumi matches the boy's enthusiasm, and soon enough they are talking back and forth so fast that not many people can make out the words. Sun can only stare as he thinks to himself, oh god, there's going to be two of them. The bus arrives and the students file on. Mina and Izuku sit next to each other with Midoriya and Ida across from them. Rumi and Sun have a hushed conversation near the front by Aizawa, who seems to be sleeping. Everyone starts talking about their quirks, and soon enough a question Izuku wasn't ready for was asked. Midoriya, your quirk is like All Might's, isn't it? Sue asks. Sun glances back with worry. Izuku glances back and prepares to lie his ass off. Well, I guess it is. His quirk doesn't emit lightning from his body though, Izuku says. Yeah, and he breaks his bones if he uses too much of his quirk, remember? All Might doesn't do that, Kirishima says. I suppose that's true, Sue says, focusing on the bus's conversation again. Mina noticed how Izuku tensed up with the question, and saw the shared look between Sun and Izuku. Despite being curious, she would have to ask later, perhaps on their next date. As she thinks of another date, she blushes slightly. Rumi couldn't believe what Sun's saying right now. All Might, the most powerful hero in history, gave his quirk to Midoriya. So that's why you said he has the potential to be stronger than you, she says in a whisper. Yes, the only reason I'm telling you this is because I know I can trust you. Plus, the information will come in handy when he interns with you later on, Sun whispers back. Look at you, training the world's next symbol of peace, she says with a giggle. Sun only nods and faces the front of the bus once again. Thankfully, Izuku handled the question better than he thought he would. He listens to the conversation on the bus, and has to hide a smirk as everyone pokes fun at Bakugo. He didn't necessarily like it, but it could teach him some humility. Hopefully. Soon enough the bus parks at the USJ, and the students are filed out. He explains that the USJ is not Disneyland, and that it's the training area they use for natural disasters. They will be conducting exercises to simulate natural disasters, to see where they are with clear thinking in moments of stress. Upon entering they are greeted by 13, who pull Aizawa and Sun aside. He used up his time limit. He should make it by the end of the exercise, Aizawa says. You would think he would be more careful with how he uses his power now, Sun complains. Well, once an idiot, always an idiot, Aizawa says with a sigh. 13 introduces themselves and begins to take questions. It's then that something feels off to Sun. Aizawa notices it too. Soon after, a purple portal opens on the plaza of the USJ. Hundreds of villains pour out from the portal along with a giant creature that Sun can tell is the biggest threat. They introduce themselves as the League of Villains and their intentions here. Where is he, Kurogiri? The one with hands on him asks. I do not know, he should be here, Kurogiri says. Oh well, while we wait, why don't we have some fun and hurt the symbol of peace while we're at it? Hansi asks. The villains start to spread out. Aizawa puts his goggles on and instructs 13 to protect the students. Izuku begins to try and convince him to stay here since he isn't suited to combat against multiple people. You can't be a hero without a couple of tricks up your sleeve, Aizawa says simply before jumping into the fight. Rumi goes to follow but Sun stops her. What the hell, Sun? She explained angrily. I'll go down and fight. You stay here and protect the students in case any of them slip by us, he says. Rumi goes to argue but stops when she sees the look in his eyes, almost panic. If Sun's scared of something down there, it must be more serious than she thought. She relents and agrees to stay with the students. Sun nods. He then powers up and launches himself down the stairs at an incredible speed. He and Aizawa fight back to back with ease. These were expendable villains after all. meant to wear them down for the real fight. They didn't account for Sun's inhuman stamina, however. Izuku watches helplessly as his mentors fight for their lives below him. He clenches his fist in slight anger that he can't do anything to help. Rumi and 13 gather everyone and begin to make their way to the door and leave. The purple mist guy stops them, however. Rumi launches herself at the mist villain only for a portal to be opened in front of her. She disappears from the student's sight as 13 activates their quirk and begins to suck the mist villain into a black hole. It works for a while before the mist villain opens another portal, using 13's quirk against them. Bakugo sets off an explosion at the mist villain, stopping the attack, but leaving him unharmed. It's then that the mist surrounds the students, throwing them to random areas. Izuku lands in the water. He looks around quickly and sees multiple villains swimming towards him. He powers up quickly and prepares to fight, only for a tongue to wrap around him and launch him into the air and onto a boat not too far away. The teen lets out a sigh of relief. "Thanks for the save, Tsu," he says. "No problem, Midoriya," the frog girl says. Izuku takes stock of their situation. Mineta is with them as well. They are trapped on a boat surrounded by villains with water-based quirks. Seeing how they sent Tsu here, they probably didn't know their quirks. Izuku can vaguely hear Mineta crying in the background as he tries to think of a plan. "Wait, Mineta, what's your quirk?" Izuku asks. The boy stops crying and explains that the purple balls on his head stick to anything and won't let go for up to 24 hours. Now Izuku has a plan, a half-baked one, but it's better than no plan at all. 5 minutes later. "Mineta, they're gonna come after us eventually. We have to try and get out of here," Midoriya argues with the small teen. "No, I'm staying here and waiting on rescue," the boy shouts back. It's now that the ship shudders and begins to sink. Mineta notices this and begins to panic. Izuku grabs him by the shoulders and slaps him one good time. "Don't panic. We knew this would happen and we have a plan in place, okay? Follow the plan and we'll be fine," Izuku states to a now stunned Mineta. Izuku nods to Tsu, who nods back. He then approaches the railing and, with a battle cry Bakugo would be proud of, jumps towards the villains. First they are ecstatic that the boy is jumping towards them. That quickly turns to panic as green lightning surrounds the boy, even brighter on his middle finger. With a yell, Izuku releases one for all at 100% through his middle finger. The pressure from the attack causes a whirlpool in the water, sucking all the villains into it. Tsu catches him and Mineta throws his purple balls into the water as they fly by, effectively capturing the villains and putting them out of commission for the rest of the fight. Aizawa is getting tired. Sun can feel it. His movements are getting sluggish, and the time his quirk is active grows shorter and shorter. They have a momentary reprieve and face their enemies back to back. "I have a plan," Sun says. "What is it?" Aizawa asks. "I haven't had much practice with it, but if it works then I should take care of the remaining henchmen here in seconds," Sun says. "Well, we're running out of options," Aizawa says. "I know, I just wish I could focus on the real threat," Sun says. Aizawa eyes the creature standing beside the blue-haired guy. That was probably their weapon to kill All Might. It was the biggest threat here. "We don't have that luxury, unfortunately," Aizawa says. The villains bear down on them again, but this time Sun uses a technique that he's only seen in his dreams. "Kaioken!" Suddenly he's surrounded by a red aura. The villains hesitate. It's just long enough for Sun to knock them out and land in front of Hanzi and the big guy. He lets go of the transformation as he looks at them. "You're stronger than we thought," Hanzi says lazily. "Thanks, push-ups, sit-ups, and lots of juice," Sun says sarcastically. "Nomu, play with him," Hanzi says. Sun barely has a chance to look before a fist is flying at him. He only dodged it thanks to years of training with Rumi. The speed and strength of the creature was enough to push Sun to play defensively. If he tried to attack, it would leave him open and possibly put him out of commission. He dodges another hook from the monster and activates Kaioken once again. He leaps into an uppercut followed by a roundhouse kick to the creature's face. It isn't phased, however, as it grabs Sun's leg and slams him into the ground, and then throws him into a wall. Sun peels himself out just in time to dodge Noma's next attack. He could go up to ×2, but any more than that, and his body started to break down. He powers up to ×2, and can now keep up with the Noma well enough. They trade attacks back and forth, a punch to the face countered by a kick to the ribs. The fighting was brutal and savage, neither letting up in their attacks. Movement out of the corner of his eye distracts Sun long enough for Nomu to grab him by the neck. Sun's concentration breaks, and he loses the Kaioken form. Noma pins him against a wall and lands attack after attack on his body and face, leaving him smashed into the concrete wall. Sun can feel his ribs creak with every breath, his nose twisted at an unnatural angle. He coughs up some blood as he peels himself off the wall and shakily stands up once more. He slowly drops into a fighting stance, still defiant even with his injuries. He never gets the chance to engage again, since a blur of movement takes everyone by surprise. Hanzi and Aizawa stop fighting, and Sun only stares as Rumi drops kicks the creature, making it slide a distance away. She faces the creature with a maniac smile on her face. "Rumi! Run! Get help!" Sun weakly says, dropping down to one knee. "Ida made it out. Besides, someone has to save your ass," she says. Nomu and Rumi engage. Sun wishes he brought his dwindling stash of senzu beans. He was nothing but a hindrance now. Rumi seems to have the upper hand in speed as she dashes around and nimbly avoids Nomu's attacks. She drops down low and launches herself at the gut of the creature, kicking it with all her might. Nomu doesn't flinch, and Sun watches in horror as the creature grabs Rumi's leg. He slams her on the ground a few times before giving her leg a twist, breaking it. Her screams could be heard all the way up to the doors of the USJ, where the students, who avoided the portal, were watching with horror. Izuku made it to the plaza and was horrified by the state Sun was in. He barely looked to be standing, and had blood running freely from a gash on his head and from his mouth. That barely compared to the scream from Mirko. Izuku knew her legs were important to her quirk, and to see it broken and twisted like it was painful. Sun felt something snap within him. When the creature broke Rumi's leg, he felt a sudden rush of power accompanying his rage. He powered up to Kaioken ×4 and launched himself at the Noma, punching it across the USJ. "Take her to the others now!" he shouts at the kids in the water, who are quick to comply. Sun faces the Noma once again, rage filtering through his very being. He could feel his bones creaking with the strain of the Kaioken. He didn't care though, he would kill this monster. He launched himself at it, and threw devastating punch after punch at it before throwing it into the air. He dropped down into a stance, and began to charge his finishing move. "Ka!" The Noma continues to fly up. "Me!" Hanzi shouts something. "Ha me!" Kurogiri appears. "Hi!" Sun unleashed the attack in the direction of Nomu. The attack makes a beeline straight for the creature, only for a portal to appear in front of the attack and open behind Sun. He barely has time to defend himself as his own attack is used against him. The following explosion was strong enough to shake the very building itself and send everyone nearby flying away. When the dust settled, Sun was barely standing. Clothes ripped to tatters, and one arm hanging limply at his side, blood covering him. His blood. His vision goes dark as the doors to the USJ bust open, and All Might steps into the fray. Sun smiles as he falls down, finally falling unconscious. Izuku looked at his mentor and friend in horror as All Might dropped him off with the students. He nearly threw up at the sight of his injuries. He would think he was dead if it wasn't for the shallow breathing coming from the boy. "Is he okay?" Mirko asks from her spot on the ground. She looks over and her eyes glaze over. "He looks dead." "He's breathing, but he needs medical attention soon," Izuku says, keeping his own panic at bay. The fight between All Might and Noma ended soon after, and the reinforcements arrived. With the villains in full retreat, everyone was allowed to breathe a sigh of relief. Medics arrived, and thanks to one of their quirks, Mirko's leg was healed. Aizawa was patched up and woken up. Sun, however, was in critical condition, and was rushed out and kept stable with the help of one of the medic's quirks. Izuku could only watch helplessly as Sun was dragged away from him. Soon Mirko and Mina were beside him. Mirko had tears in her eyes, but was stopping herself from crying. Mina was bawling at the condition of their friend. Izuku, he was too shocked for anything. He felt surprisingly empty at the thought of his friend possibly dying. Everyone was given a once-over by the remaining medic, and was filed out of the building and onto a bus. Everyone avoided the media as they didn't think they could talk after seeing their teacher like that. The ride back was surprisingly quiet. They made it to their classrooms to pick up their belongings. If Sun survived his hospital visit, Izuku had to get him a senzu bean as soon as possible. The students of Class 1A were quieter than usual after what they had witnessed not too long ago. Nobody felt like talking too much. Too much worry for one of their teachers. He looked half dead as the paramedics carried him away. Izuku had been taking it the worst of everyone, however. It makes sense. He knew Sun the longest out of everyone in his class. He spent the night in a daze. He managed to get Sun's bag of senzu beans from All Might before he went home. Apparently the man couldn't get to Sun. He had been in surgery at the time, and Izuku couldn't have left the house in the dead of night. It's now that the door to their classroom opens to reveal a relatively unharmed Aizawa. The worst of his injuries had been a broken arm, a side effect from the explosion. He walked to the front of class. As soon as he stopped, students began to ask questions. Aizawa cut them off curtly, however. "Kombu is fine. He got out of surgery last night. Mirko is staying with him at the moment. I don't know anything else." Aizawa says. The students quieted down, mostly relieved as their teacher didn't in fact die at the hospital. Izuku and Mina still worried for their mutual friend. Class is dragged on, with both Mina and Izuku being more quiet than normal. Lunch talk increased among the students, but apparently Izuku and Mina's quietness was bothering a student. Listen, nerd, Bakugo said, stopping by Izuku's table. The fucker is gonna be fine. Stop sulking, it's fucking depressing. The blonde teen leaves without another word. Izuku quietly contemplates his old friend. There had been a slight change in the boy, nothing you would see if you didn't know him. Izuku, however, did know him. Every shout held back, and insult kept was surprising to Izuku. The fact that Bakugo had actually talked to him without insulting him was amazing in itself. Class passed without any further incident. Izuku and Mina quickly made their way to the hospital that Sun was staying in. The pair were quiet the whole trip, only muttering a few words to each other. Izuku was worried of what he would see when they made it to his room. Would there be a limb they couldn't save? Or an organ? Maybe something that the Sensabine couldn't heal? They got his room number from the nurse attending the front desk, and quickly made their way through the winding halls. They find his room, breathe in to calm themselves, and open the door. Two things are very apparent when they enter the room. There's nobody on the bed, and the sheets have been moved, indicating someone had left the bed. They then hear the shouts of multiple doctors and nurses, followed by rapid footsteps, and the sound of wheels spinning. They look out the door just in time to see Mirko fly by with a wheelchair in front of her carrying a mummy. The mummy laughs as Mirko pushes him past a panicked nurse. Mina and Izuku look at each other confused before laughing themselves. Of course, Sun's fine. He could probably lose a lung and still be the same person afterward. Hey kid, Mirko says, bringing the wheelchair to a stop. Hey, he says back. Figured you two would visit today. The room was getting a little cramped, so we decided to get some exercise, Mirko says a bit sheepishly. The doctors quickly converge and manage to get Sun back in his bed. After a moment of stifled laughter as Sun indignantly said he didn't need any help before falling on his face, Mirko gently helped him into the bed, and Sun started talking. You know, I always hated hospitals, he starts, but I feel like it's going to be a common occurrence this year. If you inherited your family's ability to attract trouble, then yes, Mirko laughs. Hey, I wouldn't have gotten so hurt if that purple guy didn't throw my attack back at me, Sun shouts back. Well, we're glad you're okay, Mina says. Of course I'm okay. Besides, suns don't stay dead long, Sun says cryptically. Doesn't mean you can go and die on us, idiot, Mirko shouts, slapping the back of Sun's head. Izuku here has been worried sick for you since the ambulance took you away, and you say that? Mina shouts, siding with Mirko. Izuku clears his throat and presents the Senza bag to the trio. Mina stares at it curiously, and Sun speaks. Give one to Rumi first. Her injury isn't fully healed yet, Sun says. No, give one to Sun first. He's more injured than me, Mirko says. The argument goes on for a moment before Izuku sighs and tosses two to the pair. Rumi feeds the bean to Sun, who can't hold it himself, and quickly swallows her own. Sun's body seems to expand outward for a moment before coming back to its original state. Mina stares in shock as her teacher flexes out of his multiple casts and stretches. What just happened? Mina asked. Sensabine heals any recent injury, Sun basically explains. But how? She exclaims. Sun and Mirko just shrug their shoulders and laugh. The doctors notice that Sun is out of his bandages and walking around without a problem. They demand he stay for further testing just to make sure that nothing is still damaged. Mina and Izuku wave goodbye to Mirko and Sun, leaving the pair alone once again. The pair sit and enjoy the silence, mainly because Sun hasn't had a chance to properly rest in a while, and Rumi doesn't want to be the one to deny him that. You didn't have to go after the Nomi, you know, Sun idly says. You were getting your ass handed to you, Rumi teases. Sun laughs for a moment before responding. I was just trying to distract him. I could take the punishment from him so long as it wasn't consecutive hits. Only reason I'm beat up as bad as I am is because I pushed my new ability too far and got caught in a boosted ki blast. Wait, that power-up did this to you? Rumi asks. Yes and no, that creature did do a bit of damage, but most of it came from my body not being strong enough to handle the amount of boost it was receiving. Used too much of it, and it could break all your bones. That's why I was in a full body cast, Sun says. Don't use it until you're strong enough then, Rumi states. Sun begins to complain, but is quickly silenced by Rumi's finger on his lips. No arguments, you nearly died. I don't think I can go through that again, Rumi states. Sun feels a pang in his chest at that. He hadn't even considered how people around him would feel about him risking his life like that. And with him no longer being able to access the Dragon Balls, he would be permanently dead. Fine, I won't use it until I can handle it, Sun says. Rumi releases a sigh of relief. There's a knock on the door, and Sun calls for them to come in. The rabbit hero doesn't know what to make of the man in front of her. He's bald, got a gray beard, and is wearing a Hawaii shirt. She starts to turn and ask Sun who he is, but he beats her to it. Master Rashi, I was wondering when you would show up, he says, getting off of his bed and greeting the old hermit. I wasn't gonna show up for another week, but I saw the attack on the news. Figured I could show up a little early, he says. Rashi turns to address the woman in the room. Rumi can't help but feel slightly vandalized as his eyes look her up. Sun quickly flicks Rashi hard enough to make him stop ogling the girl, irritated slightly at the old man's antics. Master Rashi, you will not ogle any girl here. My students are underage, and I will not hesitate to beat that into you. I have to beat the pervert out of one of them already, Sun says, shaking his head. Rashi merely rubs the spot where Sun flicked him before giving a defeated sigh. I am Master Rashi. Kombu is one of my students. May I ask for your name? Rashi says in a civilized manner. You can call me Mirko, she says, not wanting to give her name to an old creep. Oh, I've heard about you. Sun's parents talk about you when they come and visit. Sorry, Kombu, I didn't realize this was your girlfriend, Rashi says, smiling at the young teen. Sun appears to choke on something before turning slightly red in the face. Rumi turns red as well, and they both deny the accusation. Rashi just shrugs his shoulders and tells Sun that he'll be at UA in time for their combat lesson. Rumi and Sun are left in a slightly tense atmosphere. Rumi begins to say something before Sun's phone rings. He slowly answers it. Aizawa is on his way with paperwork for him. Apparently Midoriya told him that he was all healed up now, and that if he had the energy to be wheeled around the hospital, he had the energy to do some paperwork. Not even 5 minutes later, the man showed up, dropping off a stack thicker than his sleeping bag, and left. Sun could only sigh as he looked over the papers. It wasn't the only thing Aizawa dropped off, however. On top of the paper was 18 cards, all wishing him well and a speedy recovery. Even Todoroki sent him a letter. He smiles at the cards, taking the time to read each and every one of them. Most were typical of the students based on what he had learned of them already. Mineta was just talking about how tired he must be, having to deal with someone who has the endurance of a rabbit, and then fighting a monster as strong as All Might the next day. And while he is envious of the first, he wouldn't want to be part of the latter. He really had his work cut out with this kid. Rumi offered to help with the grading, to which Sun reluctantly agreed. He didn't know if he was breaking some rule or something by allowing her to help, but he really didn't want to do this work. Soon enough visitors came in, slowly at first, but as news got out that he was awake and well, more of his students showed up. Many bringing gifts of some kind. Rumi could only stare as Sun's students gush over how awesome he was at the USJ and how much they missed him in class for the past 2 days. Despite only knowing these kids for a couple of days, he had already formed a bond with them, enough of one for them to worry about him like a close friend. After everyone visits and leaves, the pair get back to grading the now dwindling stack of papers. You know, yesterday made me realize something, Rumi began. She took his silence as an offer to keep speaking. Seeing you rushed off, almost dying, I realized that I don't want to live a life without you in it. I know it sounds crazy, but I think I'm in love with you, she says, facing Sun with a blushing face. Sun appeared to be asleep, half-graded paper still in hand. Rumi just sighs and takes the paper out of his hand and finishes for him. Setting the paperwork aside, she reclines the bed for him and pulls a chair up to the side of his bed. A little voice in the corner of her mind is screaming at her to wake him up and make him listen to her pour her heart out to the boy, but she can't find it in herself to do that. Not when he looked absolutely adorable. It's only then that she realized it's dark out. She thinks about leaving his room and sleeping somewhere else, but after everything, the thought of leaving him right now made her sick to her stomach. Deciding that another night in the chair couldn't be so bad, she prepares herself for another night. Bonus. Sun awakes in the middle of the night due to a groan at the side of his bed. He barely opens his eyes to see Rumi sleeping not so peacefully. Head resting on his bed, while her body is supported by the chair. He sighs as he picks the girl up and places her in the hospital bed before climbing back into it. She willingly stayed with him when she could have left hours ago. He could at least make some room for her on his bed. He turns over to face the sleeping girl and takes notice of her features for the first time. He realized then that the girl is beautiful, the most beautiful he's ever seen. He blushes as the thought leaves his mind, with sleep claiming him once again. He takes her hand into his and falls asleep and enters into a blissfully quiet night. Class 1A was once again greeted by the smiling face of Sun as they walked into class. He greeted every student who came through and thanked them once again for visiting him yesterday. Aizawa was quick to hand the students over to Sun, since they missed his training session due to the attack on USJ and from him being stuck in the hospital. He quickly ushers everyone out and into the training yard. Alright, so I'm assuming Aizawa is planning on telling you later, but the sports festival is coming up. Sun starts. It's a big chance for all of you. It's your chance to put yourself out there and catch the eyes of many pro heroes. Now, with it fast approaching, you will be spending more time in my section of the class. We will be working on strategic training as well as hand-to-hand and quirk combat. Everyone split into your groups and begin warming up. Sun states. The class quickly divides into groups. Izuku pairs himself with Mina as they help each other stretch properly. Izuku notices how Mineta is off to the side talking to Sun, but brushes it off. Soon an elderly man enters the training area. Sun bows to the man and leads him to the students. Everyone, this is Master Rashi. He's trained me for years now, and has agreed to spend a few days here to help your training. He will be going from group to group observing your technique and giving you advice on how to improve. Sun says to the students. Each student nods and begins to introduce themselves to the old hermit. He's a funny man with lots of jokes, so he gets along well with many in the class. Rashi starts with the largest group since they need the most corrections. At this time, Sun once again starts talking to Mineta. Mineta, why do you want to be a hero? Sun asks simply. For the chicks, of course. The great boy says. If you looked close enough, you could see Sun wince at the answer, but he persevered anyway. You know what responsibility comes with being a hero, right? Sun asks. Yeah. Save people and get the ladies. Mineta exclaims. No. Sun says, looking at a confused Mineta. A hero's responsibility is keeping the people around him safe, taking the hit for someone else, and being the front line of defense against villain attacks. That sounds scary. Mineta says. It's the truth of being a hero. Many heroes are scared during every fight. But they persevere for those that stand with them, behind them, and for their family. They fight for many people they don't know, and many have sacrificed their lives in their duty. And you dare to say you're doing it for the chicks? Sun asks. Mineta stays quiet as Sun stares him down. The boy seems to shake under the taller man's gaze, and Sun just shakes his head. If that's your only intention, I suggest you leave now. There are other people in this school who deserve this spot more. Sun states and begins to walk away. Mineta quickly grabs Sun's pants leg. Sun turns to face the boy who is looking down at the dirt with a fist clenched. I know, I saw what a real hero looked like at USJ, how Midoriya hurt himself to protect us, how you and Aizawa jumped into a fight for us, how you kept the thing busy, taking the hits to protect us. Give me a chance. I can't promise I'll change completely, but I'll change. Mineta begs. There was a shift in the boy, nothing major but there nonetheless. Sun kneels down and addresses the boy, looking him in the eye. Change takes time, Mineta. I don't expect you to change overnight. I brought this up because it could make the very people you protect scared of you. I want to see you reach your potential. Sun explains. Mineta nods. Having said that, I expect you to give up your perverted ways by the end of the school year. Sun states. Mineta can only put his head down and nod. Sun feels a small smile grace his lips. It wasn't much, but it was progress, and considering how perverted Mineta is, he's proud he is willing to give it up to be a hero. Good. I will ask you once again why you want to be a hero at the end of the year. I expect a better answer next time. Now, you will be training one-on-one with me every day from now on. Hopefully, I can teach you at least the basics of hand-to-hand combat and more versatile ways to use your quirk. Sun states. How do you suggest I use my quirk? Mineta asks. Sun seems to ponder the question for a minute before answering. Well, for starters, you could lay traps and ambush people. Your quirk makes for excellent restraints and could be used to shape the environment to fit your needs. You seem to be able to bounce off of your sticky balls, so if you were to learn parkour, you could set up a trap for many criminals and attack while flying from wall to wall like an old hero by the name of Gran Torino. Next, you could ask the support class if they could make some kind of item to let you launch your balls further than you could with your arms. I'm not sure how successful it would be, but it's worth a shot. Next, you could make a net from the balls or just attach them to the corners of a normal net. Sun explains. Mineta looks stunned for a moment before he grumbles to himself. Why didn't I think of that sooner? Don't sulk, you know now, so there's no excuse. I will accept setbacks like this, but I will never accept you sulking or quitting. You will hold your head high every day and put everything you have into training. I will make you a hero. But you have to believe in yourself. I can't teach someone who is constantly getting into his own head. Sun says, glancing over to Izuku. Mineta looks to his hand, which he clenches into a fist. He then looks up to Sun with a look of determination. I will be a hero. I won't quit no matter what you throw at me, he shouts. Sun only smiles. He got through to him. He quickly begins to teach him the basics of hand-to-hand combat. At this time, Rashi made his way over to Team A. Izuku and Bakugo were already locked in a sparring match, while Yorizoru and Todoroki practiced hand-to-hand combat. Rashi watches everything with a critical gaze. The dual-haired teen and the girl with the ponytail seemed to be lacking in any technique, while the other two were pretty much oozing talent from their fight. Rashi did notice the anger in the blonde-haired boy, however. Anger was useful but dangerous. It could drive men and women to do many great, but also terrible things. After he tells Midoriya what to work on as well as Todoroki and Yorizoru, he pulls Bakugo aside. "Why are you so angry, child?" Rashi asks. "I'm not angry," Bakugo shouts. "I can see it. Every movement, every strike, every word is filled with anger," Rashi states, not even flinching at the outburst. "TCH, fine, I'm angry because I'm not the strongest anymore," Bakugo says. "Why does that make you angry?" Rashi asks. "Because I'm supposed to be the best, damn it," Bakugo exclaims. "I once knew a man so obsessed with becoming the strongest that he disregarded his family for the longest time. It wasn't until the announcement of his second child on the way that he realized something. He had given up so much in his quest for greatness, I could see the regret in his eyes from that day forward," Rashi says. "So what?" Bakugo says. "What I'm trying to say is, there are more things life has to offer than just being the strongest. If you ask me, being the strongest isn't as great as it seems. You become complacent, feel secure in your spot at number one. But if you're weaker, it gives you a goal, it shows you what you're aiming for. So don't be angry that you're weaker than someone else. Use that anger as motivation to get stronger. I've trained some of the strongest men to ever exist. I can tell you for a fact that seeing someone else stronger than them only made them train harder, and the man at the top never stopped training, never stopped improving himself. You can do that too, but you must clear your mind of all the anger that surrounds you," Rashi states. Bakugo blinks at the old man in front of him, strangely calm. "And when the time comes for you to step away from the fight, do it gracefully. I no longer fight. I train the next generation in hopes of a better future," Rashi says. "Just how strong were you in your prime, old man?" Bakugo asks. Rashi swiftly slams his cane on Bakugo's head with an audible crack. "It's Master Rashi. I suppose the closest comparison would be All Might's level of strength. I'm far past that point in my life, however," Rashi states. "You mean to tell me you were as strong as All Might? OL Master Rashi?" Bakugo says, catching himself. "Indeed, I can still reach half of that power, but it's very draining for an old man like me," Rashi states. "Show me," Bakugo says. Rashi simply shrugs and steps back from Bakugo. The old hermit places his cane down on the ground and removes his sunglasses. He then drops into a stance and begins to power up. The wind kicks up around the old man as a very faint aura surrounds him. Suddenly he busts up, looking like All Might. The students stare in wonder as the old man releases the power. Most students shrug it off since he did teach Sun everything he knew and probably had a similar quirk. Only Midoriya knew the truth. This man was quirkless. All that power was from his own training. Bakugo seemed satisfied with the demonstration. He begrudgingly thanked the old man for his advice and moved to get back to practice. Rashi noticed his movements were smoother, sharper, and free of his emotion. The kid still had a lot of things to work out in his own time, but for now, this was all Rashi could do. He takes the time now to further scrutinize the other pair. Todoroki moves with confidence, but doesn't know how to handle someone getting in too close to him. Momo seems to have the upper hand in this situation. Rashi halts the match and tells them to use their quirks. He had been briefed on everyone's quirks, so that he could know what they were if he asked them to fight with them. Todoroki quickly threw his eyes at the young woman, freezing her in place before turning to Rashi. "What are you looking at?" Rashi asks. "I won," Todoroki simply states. Rashi simply glances past Todoroki as Momo breaks the ice around her ankles and rushes at Todoroki. The boy spins around to throw more ice, but is too slow as Momo hits his knee with a hastily made staff, knocking him to the ground. She then swings it around to his face, stopping just inches from it. "Never assume you won, always assume your enemy isn't done," Rashi states. Todoroki calmly stands. "Why didn't you use your fire?" Rashi asks. Todoroki seems slightly irritated at the question, but answers anyway. "I refuse to use his power." "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," Rashi states. Todoroki is momentarily shocked before his face shows slight anger. A lot considering he hasn't shown much emotion. "You think a villain is gonna care? A villain will be ecstatic to know you are only fighting at 50%. They won't hesitate to kill you," Rashi states. "You don't know anything about me," Todoroki says. "I may not, but I can tell you what I see. You cannot become the best hero you can be without using your full power. And to restrain yourself for such a stupid reason is just not right. Rashi once again says. Todoroki merely stays quiet as Rashi tells them to begin hand-to-hand combat again. He can only think about how sorry he is for Sun. Rashi may have had to deal with some blockheads, but these kids were something else. He's broken from his thoughts as the Midoriya boy approaches him. Whatcha need, kid? Rashi asks. Oh, Sun always talks highly of you when the subject arises. I just couldn't help but wonder if you were a hero sometime in your life? Izuku asks. Rashi ponders the question for a moment before answering. By the standards of a hero, yes, I was. I fought many battles that people never heard of, faced countless opponents, and came out on top. Well, in that case, Izuku says, jogging over to his bag and fishing out a notebook. Would you mind signing this on the first open page? Could I maybe ask you a few questions as well? Izuku asks. Rashi blinks at the notebook in his hands for a second before laughing. You know, I haven't been asked for an autograph since the last time I won the World's Martial Arts Championship. Rashi quickly signs the notebook and begins to flip through the pages of the notebook, each person having multiple pages for them. Mirko seemed to be the last entry before him, so he spent some time reading it. I'm surprised Sun's girlfriend took the time for all these questions, Rashi says. Not together, Sun shouts from somewhere on the field. Whatever, Rashi shouts back. Totally together. Rashi then closes the book and agrees to answer any question Izuku has during the time that he is here. The boy quickly produces a pen and asks his first question. So you were alive when Goku was around, yeah? And you trained him? I just want to ask, how old are you? Izuku asks. Rashi takes a moment to do the math in his head. After so many years, what's the point of keeping track? I'm probably around 700 years old. If I'm being honest, the years just kind of blur together, Rashi says. Is this due to a quirk or something else? Izuku asks quickly. Well, I gathered the Dragon Balls when I was younger and wished to be biologically immortal. There's no fun in being completely immortal, no thrill, Rashi states. Izuku quickly writes down the information faster than Rashi can blink. Izuku quickly asks more questions before Rashi simply tells the boy he should probably get back to training. Rashi then takes a seat at a spot where he can observe everyone. He had to admit, he missed training people. There was something about seeing someone reach their potential that just made him feel happy. The period ended sooner than everyone thought. The class made their way to the locker rooms to get changed back into their uniforms. Izuku stopped Mineta one last time. Since part of your training will be ambush and capture, I expect one capture attempt per day. Once you capture me, I have a surprise for you, Sun states, letting the boy go. I don't envy you, kid. This class is a mental mess, Rashi states. I know, Sun states. But if anyone is going to teach them, I think it should be you, Rashi says, placing a hand on Sun's shoulder. Sun just laughs before heading to the staff lounge to rest before he had to make another appearance in class. His phone dings as he receives a text from Rumi. Mrs. Curb Stomp, hey, I'm gonna stick around the area a little longer, patrol and stuff. Sir eats a lot, okay? Why? Mrs. Curb Stomp, because silly. I already miss you guys. Plus, after the attack on USJ, I don't think those guys will sit idly for long, and they are obviously targeting All Might. So the strongest people need to be there for when it happens. Sir eats a lot. While the first reason isn't good enough, the second is true. I would prefer you weren't here when it happened, however. Mrs. Curb Stomp, listen here. If you think I'm weak or something, then I can march over there and show you just how strong I am. Sir eats a lot. I'm worried about those villains if you get a hold on them. Mrs. Curb Stomp, damn straight. They should be the ones worried. Sir eats a lot. Yeah, anyway, just try not to get hurt. With that, Sun puts his phone back into his pocket and decides to take a page from Aizawa's book. He gets comfortable on the couch and quickly falls asleep. With a league of villains. Tomura sits at the bar, nursing his hand that had gotten shot. Kurojiri idly polishes the multitude of glasses on the wall while he listens to Tomura rant. The Noma was supposed to be as strong as All Might, but it was almost killed by some random NPC, Tomura shouts. I will admit that this was unexpected. Kurojiri agrees. Sensei said the Noma could take anything All Might threw at it, but just ended up being useless trash, Tomura states. It's at this point that the TV turns on, signaling that Sensei is going to say something. While unexpected, do not lose hope, Tomura. All for One starts. I did not expect him to interfere with our plans, but we do have a contingency. I will make sure he pays, so worry not. By the end of it all, he will be nothing more than a shadow of his former self. Sensei, what's your plan? Tomura asks. A long time ago, I stumbled across a doctor's research. After some digging, I learned his name, Dr. Jero. He created artificial life, capable of destroying everything in its path. I plan to recreate his life's work. All for One says. Tomura smiles wickedly as the TV feed begins to show the androids in stasis tanks, still in the early stages of development. All for One goes on to explain how these machines were created to kill one of the strongest men in history, but failed due to something unexpected. He assures Tomura that the error will be resolved and that they will be nothing more than mindless puppets for him to control. The first prototype will be ready in less than 3 weeks. Tomura starts laughing wildly and looks at Kurojari. It's time we expand our numbers. No more small fry. We're going to fill our party, Tomura says. Of course, I will begin looking immediately, Kurojari states. UA. The class is once again in homeroom, Aizawa repeating the same speech that Sun had given them hours before. I'm really amped up for the sports festival, guys, Kirishima says. Yeah. With Sun training us, there's no way our class won't get top 20, Zero exclaims. Just thinking about it gets me hyped up, Sato shouts. The class continues to talk amongst themselves as Sun smiles at them. He would need to have a talk with them about how they earn just as much credit as he did, but that's a topic for when they complete his 2 weeks training. Sun opens the door to leave for his own lunch, but is stopped by a large crowd. Shouldn't all of you be at lunch? A confused Sun asks. We just had to come see the infamous Class 1A and their trainer in person. A blonde-haired student Sun recognizes as someone from Class 1B. Okay. A confused Sun once again states. The boy looks at all of the students then scoffs. Honestly, I'm disappointed. Class 1B is obviously superior. And to think everyone is paying so much attention to them. The student once again says. You want to go, you fucking extra? Bakugu shouts. Bakugu down, boy. Now, could you please move? I need to get to my lunch, Sun states. The blonde student stands his ground. He quickly remembers that the man before him is a teacher, however, and quickly moves out of his way. I suggest you let them through as well. After our training session this morning, I'm sure they are all hungry. If they're anything like me, I wouldn't suggest stopping them from eating, Sun says, walking away from the large crowd. They don't heed his advice, however, and stay in place. Bakuga goes off on the students gathered outside, while the class tries unsuccessfully to restrain him. Once Bakuga calms down enough, another student appears. He sports purple hair and tired eyes as he looks at the class. You know, if a student in the general education course does well enough in the sports festival, they can take a spot in the hero course? He starts. I plan to do that. Consider this a declaration of war. Bakuga stands to start shouting again, but everyone is prepared this time and keeps him at bay. Midoriya stands as the class president, and it's his job to address the students. I do apologize for Kakin. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Class president, I'm truly sorry you didn't make it into the class at the start of the year. I'm guessing your quirk isn't suited to combat? Midoriya asks. Like I would tell you, the boy says. Of course, could I have your name at least? I want to be friends no matter the outcome of the festival, Midoriya asks. Hitoshi Shinso, I don't plan on making any friends, he says. Well, win or lose, I'm sure you could be a great hero. I hope to see you in the heroics class one day, Shinso, Midoriya says. Midoriya, you are a shining example to all of us in the hero course, Ida yells. Offering friendship to those who would pit themselves against you is truly heroic. Or stupid, Bakuga says. The class is now free to leave and get lunch as the crowd disperses after that. Izuku releases a sigh of relief as the crowd leaves. It still takes a lot out of him to talk without stuttering, and to do it in front of so many people drained him. Mina, Yurikara, and Ida flank him and talk as they walk down the hallway. Mina, being Mina, starts talking about gossip. So what do you think is going on between Sun and Mirko? She asks. Well, Sun did say they were family friends, Yurikara says. But did you see his reaction to her getting hurt? Or her reaction? There's definitely something going on there, Mina exclaims. And when Master Roshi said they were together, he denied it rather quickly with a blush on his face. Yurikara continues. Exactly, Mina exclaims. You really shouldn't gossip about our teachers. Their personal lives are their business, Ida states. Izuku just wished for them to stop talking about it due to Sun's enhanced senses. If Sun was anywhere near them, he would be able to hear them. What about that weird red thing he did? Yurikara asks, ignoring Ida. That was weird. He didn't say anything about that when he introduced his quirk, Mina says. While Izuku knew the full truth behind Sun's quirk, the others did not even Mina. When asked, Sun just simply stated that if too many people find out, it could cause chaos, mainly due to the forces outside comprehension. The group looks to Izuku. What? He asks. Well, you have been training with him for months before getting into UA, Mina says. And you two seem really friendly, Yurikara says. We really shouldn't be prodding for information, Ida says. Come on, you can't say you're not interested too, Mina exclaims. I suggest quieting down in the halls. You're interrupting my lunch, Sun says, sliding open the door. Sun nods to Midoriya in a we'll talk later kind of way. Mina turns slightly pale at being caught gossiping about the very person who controls their workouts, and Yurikara does too. Ida just says something about I told you so. Now go get lunch. I may or may not answer your questions later. But me and Rumi are not together, Sun states. First name basis, huh? Mina asks with a wry smile. Sun glances over to Izuku, trying to tell him he's sorry for what he's about to say. And? I've heard you call Midoriya by his first name multiple times, including nicknames, Sun says with a smug smile on his face. Mina turns a shade of lilac while Izuku turns red as tomatoes. Sun just laughs as he closes the door once again to finish his lunch. The pair walk the rest of the way in relative silence as Izuku swears to get revenge one day. Upon entering the cafeteria, they quickly grab their food and seat themselves at their usual table. So what's everyone's plans for this weekend? Yurikara asks. Training mostly. I need to be prepared for the sports festival, Midoriya says, eating his katsudon. Come on, Midori. You gotta have some fun every now and again, Mina exclaims. I for one think it's very admirable, Ida states. That's because you're always taking things too seriously, Ida, Mina states. I agree, Yurikara says. Ida tries to defend himself, but ultimately fails against the two teens. Midoriya ponders his options for fun over the weekend before he remembers a conversation between him and Mina. Well, we could all go to the beach, Midoriya says. That would be awesome, Mina exclaims. You could also train there, Ida. Since your quirk relies on endurance, you could run on the beach or swim to increase it, Midoriya says, hoping to appeal to the serious teen. That's a wonderful idea, Midoriya, Ida says with a smile. Did I hear something about the beach? A new voice asks. It's Toru. Of course she could sneak up to them without anyone noticing. Midoriya almost choked on his food before calming himself down. Yeah, it's the beach near Mizufu. Dagoba Municipal Beach, Mina exclaims. Isn't that place kinda a dump? Toru asks. Not anymore. Someone cleaned it up over the summer, Ida says. The news covered it after it had been cleaned. I must admit it was quite the amount of community service. Truly an unsung hero. Mina and Izuku share a knowing look for a moment. If that's the case, why don't you guys invite the whole class? Toru asks. That's a great idea, Toru, Mina exclaims. I agree. It would be good for everyone after USJ, Ida says seriously. I haven't been to the beach in ages, Yurikara says. What do you think, Minori? Mina asks. She had to ask him after all. After the time he spent to clean up the place, it was dear to him. It was where his journey started, almost a sacred place to him. It only felt right for him to have the final say in the topic. I think it's a great idea, Midoriya says with a goofy smile. Great. I'll let everyone know where, Toru says before rushing off to her own table. Izuku smiles to himself as he continues to eat, half listening to what everyone at the table is saying. He was so lucky, lucky to be here, lucky to have his friends, lucky to have been caught by Sun that day. You hear me, Midori? Mina asks. Sorry. What did you say? Izuku says. Oh well, I was wanting to go to the mall today and pick out a new bathing suit. Yurikara and Ida are gonna tag along. You wanna come too? Mina asks. Sure, Izuku quickly says. Any time to hang out with Mina is worth it to him, plus his friends are going too. Not like he can really turn them all down. Mina continues to talk excitedly up until the bell rings, signaling that lunch has ended. The group of friends walk back to class, excited for the day to end. Okay, Master Rashi, I need you to report anything about the students to me. Did you notice anything off with them today? Sun asked the old man across from him. Most of them are run-of-the-mill average kids, not saying they aren't something special though. A few of them, however, do seem to have some kind of problems, Rashi says. Explain, Sun says, slurping the noodles on his second plate of food. The one with the red hair, Kirishima, I believe? Rashi asks. After Sun nods yes, he continues. He is hesitant, almost like he's overthinking everything he does. I don't know if something happened in the past, or if it's just his nature. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Anything else? Sun asks. Todoroki, he doesn't use his fire. It's almost as if he believes that he will become his father if he does use it, Rashi says. Am I missing something here? Sun asks. Well, his father isn't the best person, and considering his hate for that side of his quirk, I must assume that it has something to do with him, Rashi wisely says. Sun sighs as he grabs his last plate for his small lunch and nods for Rashi to continue again. But Goku, he seems to have both a superiority and inferiority complex at the same time. He believes he is the best but also believes that he's falling behind a certain student, Rashi says. I'm working on that, Sun says. Well, other than that, all I can say is watch out for Yorozu, the one with the ponytail. Rashi eventually gives up. Why? Sun asks. She's certain of herself at the moment, but as you know, failure can cripple a person's confidence. If she doesn't do well in the future, she will start second-guessing herself and ultimately falling into a downward spiral, Rashi says. Sun finishes his plate of food and quickly packs everything back into his oversized lunch box. He thanks the old hermit and quietly sends a thank you prayer to whatever god is listening, thanking them for Rashi actually getting wiser as the years went on. He enters class along with the rest of the students. Midoriya approaches him almost as soon as they walk in. Son, we're all going to the beach tomorrow, and I was wondering if you would supervise? Midoriya asks. Why do I need to? Sun asks. My neta, Izuku states. Right, I'll be there. Just text me the time later today. For now, get back to your seat, Sun states. Izuku quickly makes it back to his seat. Mina, Yurikara, and Ida stare at him for a moment too long but quickly look away when they realize he caught them. Mina stuck her tongue out at him before looking away, probably for calling her out in the hallway earlier, but oh well. He could apologize later if it was really bothering her. The rest of the day goes smoothly as Sun gathers his bags and makes to leave the building. His phone dings. He opens the messages to see a text from his cousin. He hadn't seen them in quite a long time. They mostly stayed at the Brief's lab. They did odd jobs for heroes, making support items when paid enough. They mostly stayed to themselves, however. It's odd in itself that they contacted him. His eyes widened at the text, and he nervously replied. He then started looking for Midoriya, hoping he hadn't left the school yet. He manages to catch him just outside the gate of UA. Midoriya! Can I have a word for a moment? Sun asks. Sure, Midoriya states. Sun quickly pulls him aside and whispers to him so that the others can't hear him. Some of my family is coming to watch the sports festival this year, he states. Awesome. Who? Midoriya asks. The lineage that's directly related to Vegeta. They want to see, and I quote, what kind of person is worthy of being trained by a scion. They are just as prideful as Vegeta himself was, but they are also some of the smartest people I've ever met. If you manage to impress them, it could give you access to more advanced training methods. And hopefully they won't go for my head after it's all said and done. Sun says quickly. Wait, you're not allowed to train anyone, Izuku asks. Yes and no, but that's not important now. Just make sure you do your best, okay? This is a big opportunity, Sun says, patting him on the back. Izuku quickly shakes off the nerves that had built and quickly made his way back over to his friends. Hopefully the mall would be fun enough. Sun got another text at this time from Rumi. Mrs. Curb Stomp. Hey, there's a hot dog eating competition at the mall today. I bet I can eat more than you. Sir eats a lot. Oh, you are on. This is my territory. Sun quickly puts his phone back into his pocket and rushes home. Maybe for once, he can beat Rumi in something. She always wins one way or another, so it would be nice for him to actually win once. Izuku was running late. He didn't expect his train to be late cause it's never been late before, but there was a villain attack somewhere on the track. He jogs down the sidewalk to the place where they were supposed to meet, hoping they hadn't decided to leave without him. It's only 2 blocks away, and he's barely 5 minutes late. Mina wouldn't leave him behind, he knows that much. The others, though, he wasn't sure. Sure, they talked in class and ate lunch together, but a life of bullying made him doubt they were friends. Thankfully, his worries were for nothing because when he rounded the corner, he saw all 3 of them. Mina waved him over as Ida and Yurikara smiled at him. Hey! Sorry I'm late, Izuku says. Don't worry about it. I heard about the villain attack, Mina exclaims. While it's excusable, do try to be on time. Tardiness reflects poorly on a hero in training, Ida says, ever the serious type. Ida, it's not his fault, Yurikara says, elbowing the taller student in the arm. I'm just glad you guys waited for me, Izuku laughs. It wouldn't be very polite, Ida says. Why would we leave you behind? Yurikara asks. Have I ever left you behind before, dude? Mina asks with a smile. Izuku chuckles for a moment, thinking about the time she left him in the dust after spotting an alien plushie in a store window before responding. Well, I guess I'm just a little paranoid. I've never really had friends before. Ida simply nods once in understanding. He didn't exactly have many friends due to his stoic and serious attitude. Yurikara just looked shocked thinking, this kind, brave and total cinnamon roll didn't have friends? How? Mina just gave him a sad smile, placing a hand on his shoulder. Izuku reaches up and gives the pink girl's hand a squeeze before talking. Sorry about bringing the mood down. Anyway, let's get going, Izuku says with that $1,000,000 smile of his. Yeah, Mina and Yurikara exclaim while Ida just nods again. The four friends walk, talking about the villain attack that held up his train. Apparently some guy with a quirk that made anything he stood on melt, robbed a store, and attempted to get away by running across the tracks while a train was coming, making the heroes stop the train before they could continue to chase him. Thankfully, a maintenance crew member had a quirk that allowed him to manipulate metal, so it was fixed relatively quickly. The villain ended up getting away, but thankfully nobody was hurt during the escape. Eventually they made it to the mall. It was busy as most malls are in large cities. They quickly made their way inside and decided to pick out new bathing suits first. Izuku and Ida were looking in the men's section of the store, while Mina and Yurikara were in the women's. Come on, Yurikara! There's no need to pick something this modest, Mina exclaims. Yurikara puts the pink one-piece bathing suit down and continues to look at her options. I'm not as comfortable with my body as you are, Mina. Mina just smiles at the gravity-controlling teen. I wasn't always as confident as I am, you know. I'm fucking pink. She laughs. Yurikara just stared at Mina for a moment, unbelieving of her statement. I was called a lot of names growing up. I was born like this. It's not part of my quirk, you know, Mina says with a smile. How did you get so confident then? Yurikara asked shyly. I stopped caring what everyone thinks, Mina exclaims. And trust me, you got the body of a queen girl. Own that. Yurikara smiles at Mina, who quickly picks out a pink polka dot two-piece. The pink girl pushes the bathing suit into her friend's hands and grabs the leopard print two-piece she picked for herself and ushers Yurikara to the dressing room to try it on. Ida and Izuku make their way over to Mina, who just waves them over. Ida held a basic blue pair of trunks, while Izuku held an All Might-themed pair. Always the fanboy. Mina giggles, making Izuku blush. Where's Yurikara? Ida asks, taking a seat across from Mina. Trying on the bathing suit I picked out, Mina says. I'm afraid to see it considering your taste in cheetah print, Izuku says, sitting next to her. Mina punches him in the arm before saying, It's leopard jackass. Yurikara walks out of the changing room right after this. Izuku blushes slightly but manages to turn his head quickly enough to hide it. Ida does the same. His blush is less evident but still present. Mina turns to the girl. Yes. You look amazing, girl. You think so? Yurikara asks shyly. Of course. And those two over there do too, Mina says, gesturing to the boys in question who jumped when mentioned. Really? Yurikara asks. It's a little revealing for my taste, but yes, Ida calmly says. Yeah, Izuku simply says. Yurikara smiles at them, then quickly re-enters the changing room, putting on her street clothes and walking back out. All right, let's hit the arcade now, Mina exclaims. Don't you gotta try on yours? Yurikara asks. Mina blushes slightly. I already knew my size, so I don't really need to. Yurikara leans close enough to whisper. I know someone here would like to see it. Yurikara gives a subtle gesture over to Midoriya, causing the pink girl to turn a shade of lilac. Does Yurikara know? I didn't think I was being obvious. Mina thinks to herself. Still whispering, Yurikara talks again. You can tell a lot based on body language, you know. While Yurikara was initially disappointed that her hero from the entrance exam was already enthralled with someone, she was determined to be the best damn wingman Japan has ever seen. I don't know what you're talking about, Mina whispers. Thankfully, Ida and Izuku were talking and not paying much attention to them, but it wouldn't last long and Mina would prefer not to have an awkward situation on her hands. I know you like Midoriya. It's clear as day to anyone but him, Yurikara says. Mina blushes even harder. But it's embarrassing. He'll see it tomorrow anyway, Yurikara says. So would you rather get over the embarrassment today or at the beach tomorrow? Mina silently curses herself for not thinking of that. She quickly takes her bathing suit and makes a beeline straight for the changing room. Izuku and Ida look confused, but Yurikara just smiles at them. She didn't think about how her size might have changed since the last time she wore a bathing suit, Yurikara says. You should take more time when thinking next time, Ashido, Ida states. I know, Mina exclaims back. The trio sit back down as they wait for the pink girl to get done changing. It took longer than expected, but eventually they all heard the sound of the door being unlocked. All eyes turn to the door as it slowly opens. Mina slowly steps out and looks at Midoriya once before speaking. How does it look? Mina asks. Ida turned his head just like before, but Izuku was not so quick to turn away this time. Even if her choice in clothes could be tacky at times, it looked great on her. He guesses that leopard print just works for the girl. Izuku quickly snapped out of his daze and looked away once again. I like it, Yurikara says. What do you guys think? Same as yours, Ida says. You look amazing, Izuku says before he could stop himself. The boy blushes bright red and clamps a hand over his mouth while Mina turns a deeper lilac. I'm gonna get changed, then let's go to the arcade, she says. Yurikara smiles as phase 1 of her plan was starting to come together. It's not long before Mina is out of the changing room again, this time in her street clothes and her normal confidence once again. Alright, arcade time, Mina exclaims, grabbing Izuku's hand and storming out the door. Ashido, you gotta pay for the bathing suit, Ida says, chasing after them. With Sun and Rumi. The pair made it to the mall as soon as Rumi finished her patrols for the day. She called it early just for the event. They were walking around the mall, going into any store that looked interesting enough. Sun eventually spotted something that caught his eye and quickly bought it before Rumi could see. It would be a surprise for later. Soon after they came into a costume store, Sun immediately grabbed a pair of fake rabbit ears. Hey look, he exclaimed. I'm the great Mirko, ass-kicking extraordinaire. Damn right, Rumi exclaims with a large smile. Sun quickly bought the ears, and they left the store. The event wouldn't start for another hour, so they had some time to kill. They passed a gaming store. They let you rent a gaming system for an hour and play any game you wanted during that time. I bet I can still kick your ass in Mortal Kombat, Rumi states with a sly smile. Sun returns the smile. You're on! Back with the gang. Guys, there's an eating contest in an hour, Yurikara says. We should go watch it. I'm game, Mina shouts from her spot on the dancing game. Izuku pants from beside her. While he knew how to dance at this point, the beat of the song and the rapid movements were wearing him down. Mina didn't look worse for wear, however. Ida agreed from a seat in the new hero game Dual Heroes. The song finally finishes, and Izuku takes a break from any movement. Mina sits next to him and pulls out her phone. Sit up, she exclaims. Izuku sits up. Why? There's a flash and the sound of a picture being taken. There on Mina's screen was a photo of him clearly tired and her with a goofy smile holding up a peace sign. Cause I said so, Mina says, saving the picture to her phone before putting it away. Izuku just smiles as he leans back again on the chair. He had planned to go on a run after this, but that probably counted as one, right? Yurikara continues to drag Ida around to play games, with Ida paying for most of them since Yurikara was on a tight budget. Izuku and Mina continue to take a breather, mostly Izuku, and sit in comfortable silence for the most part. They bring up topics to talk about every few minutes, mostly about how a couple months ago Izuku would have face planted in the first 10 seconds of the song. Izuku stretched and stood. I'm gonna go get a drink and something to eat. You wanna come with me? He asks. What about Yurikara and Ida? Mina asks, looking for them. Yurikara didn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon, and Ida was stuck with her as she would play a game then run to the next one. I'll text Ida and ask what they want to eat. I don't think I want to try and pull Yurikara away from this place until she's done, Izuku says. I agree, Mina says, a little worried for her friends. The pair make their way to the food court. Ida said to text them when they got their food. Conveniently enough, the stage for the eating contest was at the food court. They could get their food and watch the event without leaving. They quickly got their food and found an open table. Izuku sent a quick text to Ida, and they began their wait for their other two friends. Man, I'm starving, a familiar voice says. You're always hungry, another familiar voice says. Mina and Izuku turn to see Sun and Mirko walking side by side, Sun holding his stomach while Rumi smiles. You still suck at Mortal Kombat, by the way, she snickers. Well, I'm gonna kick your ass next time, Sun states. The pair continue walking until they are behind the stage and hidden by the curtains. Mina and Izuku just look at each other. They are totally together, Mina says. Izuku just laughs before agreeing with the pink teen. It's not long before Yurikara and Ida find them and sit at the table to eat. Around 5 minutes into their meal, the curtains open on the stage. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Japanese competitive eating mashup. We will have your regular everyday people against some of Japan's best competitive eating, the announcer states. Oh no, Izuku says. What? Yurikara asks. You'll see. Mina winces. Someone's pride was gonna get hurt today. We have two pros today. Everyone give it up for what Brony and Badam Joran. They will be facing off against Suzaki Hiroko, Sun Kombu, and one of Japan's top heroes, Mirko. The announcer proudly states. The meal for the day? Pizza. Contestants will be judged based on how many full pizzas they can eat in 20 minutes. How do you think they will do? Ida asks. It's going to be a massacre. Izuku simply states. I feel like we should have more faith in our teacher than that. Ida states. Contestants, are you ready? The announcer asks. Yes. They all exclaim. The pizzas were carted out. There had to be at least 50 of them. Each contestant was given 5 to start. In 3, 2, 1, go! The announcer exclaims. Everyone starts eating as fast as they can. The professionals are done with their first pizza in under 3 minutes. They are so focused on their task that they don't notice the display going on not 10 feet away from them. Sun and Rumi are eating so fast, they appear to be literally inhaling their food. They finish their 5 pizzas at the same time. The workers quickly bring them more pizza, starting the cycle all over again. The announcer could only watch with awe and slight disgust at how these two could seemingly eat a pizza without chewing it. Soon they were coming to the end of their pizza stockpile, calling for more and quickly. Thankfully, there was a stand for pizza in the food court, allowing them to continue until the 20-minute mark was reached. Okay, time's up. Contestants, step aside and allow the judges to count your pans, the announcer says, recovering from his shock. Sun loudly burps as he finishes swallowing the last bite of the pizza that was in his mouth. He rubs his stomach. It was good, but he was still hungry. Rumi then slaps him on the back of the head. Manners, cutie, she exclaims, causing the young scion to blush. The judge in question doesn't even blink at the amount of pans he sees when he reaches Sun and Rumi's seats. He merely sighs and begins the long task of counting. When done, he wrote the scores on a card and handed it to the announcer. All right. In last place with 3 pans eaten is Suzaki. In third place with 8 pans is What Brony. Second place belongs to Badam Joran. We have a tie for first place. Give it up for Sun Kombu and Mirko for finishing 28 pans each, the announcer says. The two winners glare at each other for a second before laughing and walking to the microphone together. Anything you would like to say? He asks. Can I have the rest of the pizza? I'm still kinda hungry, Sun admits. You are sharing, mister, Mirko states, slapping the back of his head. Fine, fine, Sun says. The students could only look in shock, save for Mina and Izuku, who had to witness the shocking amount Sun could eat on multiple occasions. The announcer awkwardly laughed and congratulated them once again. The two pros shook hands with the top 10 hero, and then with the young scion, congratulating them. Mirko and Sun then walk off, a stack of 4 pizzas in their hands. That was something, Ida says. Yeah, Yurikara says. You should see his breakfast, Izuku says. Oh, what about that one time we got kicked out of a buffet because he ate too much? Mina laughs. Yurikara and Ida can only stare at the acid user, not fully comprehending what their teacher's stomach is capable of. Rumi and Sun take some open seats near the food court. Sun quickly opens one of the leftover boxes and begins eating. Rumi can only sigh as she watches him devour the pizza. Truth be told, she barely kept up with him. Maybe his silent genes were kicking in. You could probably eat this place out of business, you know, Rumi states. Sun attempts to speak, but with a mouthful of pizza, it comes out incoherent. He quickly swallows and answers. Yep, probably. Dad always says that if Goku and Vegeta were still around, our food bill would probably triple at least. He laughs. I just don't understand it. I know you have a really fast metabolism, but where the fuck does all that food go? Rumi asks. Training, Sun simply states before finishing box 2. At this point, the amount of food Sun is consuming is slightly unnerving. Her appetite diminishes slightly, and she slides 2 of the pizzas over to Sun for him to finish. The rest they could bring home and eat later. Probably for Sun's second dinner. You remember back when we were kids? Rumi asks. Back when everything was about which one of us could win a race. Jump the highest? Sun laughs for a moment, setting the pizza aside. Yeah, things were simple back then. I didn't have a class to whip and shape. He jokes. True, it's been fun today. It feels almost nostalgic to do something other than kick ass, Rumi says. The sparring though, you never knew when to stop, Sun says simply. I'm only trying to toughen you up. Can't have my sidekick being weak. She teases, remembering when a child Sun declared he would be her sidekick one day. I almost forgot about that. Sun laughs. The day ends with everyone saying their goodbyes to each other. Sun and Rumi make their way back home, while the students separate, agreeing to meet each other at the beach tomorrow. A man with spiky black hair lands on a rooftop along with a girl. They are strikingly similar. sharing the same widow peak and nose. They quickly observed the surrounding area, attempting to find the place they were looking for. Eventually the man's eyes spotted the quaint restaurant. He nodded to the woman and flew over to the doorway. They quickly entered and were greeted by Sasha. "Hey, welcome to the Hungry Dash." She stops, recognizing the two. "Pan! Kaiseki! You two are so big now. Come on in. I'll go get my husband," she exclaims. The pair sigh. The Sun family always had more energy than they were prepared for. Seems that will never change. The large scion left the kitchen and pulled his nephews into a bear hug. "It's so good to see you guys," he exclaims. "Let go of us," Kaiseki angrily shouts. "Yeah, we're not kids anymore, uncle," Pan shouts. The large man laughs and places them down. Finally free of his death grip, they breathe a sigh of relief. "How are things back home? You should really get your mother and father to visit us sometime," the large man exclaims. "We can visit later. First, however, we need to speak with Kombu," Kaiseki says. "Ah, about him training kids now, right?" Sasha asks. Kaiseki just nods at her words, causing a groan from the larger man. "You guys and your damn rules. We can't protect the planet forever, you know," he says with a sigh. "There will come a day when we are too weak. That will be the day this planet explodes in a ball of fire," the young scion huffs. "Fine, he's with his class at the beach Dagoba specifically," the large man says. "Go talk to him. You're not gonna talk him out of it. We have spare bedrooms if you wish to stay." The pair nod and exit the building, flying towards the beach. With Izuku. Izuku thankfully arrived at the beach before anyone else. Someone decided to dump some trash here again, much to the boy's annoyance. You would think that after all his work to clean the place up, that people would appreciate how beautiful the place was. He huffed as he placed the last of the trash in the dumpster literally right next to the park. Everyone should be arriving soon, if Mina's last text was anything to go off of anyway. Sun arrived first. He walked up and laid a towel down next to Izuku. "You sure are here early," Sun states next, setting up an umbrella next to the towel in case he wants to take a nap. Aizawa was starting to rub off on him apparently. "Yeah, I wanted to make sure the beach was clean before everyone showed up," Izuku says. "Someone decided to drop some trash here, so it's a good thing I did." "The nerve of some people. Thanks for cleaning up then," Sun says. Soon everyone else filters in, Mina being in the lead since she knew the way better than anyone else. They spot the two sitting in the sand and wave over to them. They wave back and watch as everyone walks over to them. Sun stands. "Morning, everyone," Sun exclaims. "Good morning," everyone shouts back. "Now if I was Aizawa, you would be training right now, but I'm not. So go have fun. Do whatever you want so long as it's legal," Sun exclaims. Mineta gains a hopeful look in his eye, which is quickly shut down by Sun. It seems that everyone showed up, even Bakugu. Sun quietly sits back down, bringing out his phone and sending a couple of texts before leaning back to enjoy the sun. "I bought a couple games we can play," Toru exclaims. The bag on the girl's side was surprisingly big. It contained a volleyball net, a volleyball, badminton equipment, and 3 boxes with inflatable balls. 2 of the inflatable balls you were supposed to get inside of. Ida and Midoriya got to work setting up the posts for the volleyball net, while Kirishima and Dinky started blowing up the inflatable balls. It didn't take long for them to get lightheaded, however. Sun chuckled before walking over and taking the ball from Kirishima. He quickly wipes off the valve with a disinfectant wipe and breathes deeply once. Sun then empties his lungs into the ball, filling it almost completely. He finishes the task along with the other ball, then sits back down. "You guys should be able to blow up a beach ball," Sun says. The 2 boys who had been attempting to blow up the ball blanched at the now completely inflated balls before them. Either they had some weak lungs, or their teacher wasn't human. With the posts now sturdy, and not at risk of falling, Midoriya and Ida set up the net quickly. Yurikara held the volleyball in her hand, standing beside Mina. Once the net was up, Ida and Midoriya quickly got to their side of the net. Neither of them had played this game before, but seeing how both of the girls in front of them looked really confident, they were about to get destroyed. With the beach ball now inflated, Toru, Ajui, and surprisingly Kota ran out into the water, playing a game of keep away. Kirishima climbed into one of the inflatable balls, Dinky did the same, and they faced each other. "Bring it, Sparky!" Kirishima yells. "Whatever you say, Mountain Man!" Dinky yells before running towards the red-haired teen. With a battle cry, Kirishima runs to meet Dinky head-on. He tucks his shoulder right before impact, and then suddenly they both feel weightless for a moment. They open their eyes to see they are both flying backwards. They land with a thud, immediately climbing out and laughing. Sun watches as everyone enjoys themselves, Even Ida, whose Sun would have guessed would spend the day training, is actually just having fun. Sun leans back, still keeping an eye on Mineta. He almost relaxed when he felt two familiar power levels approach. Sun felt the slightest annoyance, but stood and dusted himself off either way. He walked out into the open, hopefully far enough away from the students, so they wouldn't notice the newcomers. With a slight buzz, his cousins land in front of him. "You guys got here faster than I expected," Sun states. "Well, you know the rules," Kaiseki says. "They are there for a reason, you know," Pan says. Kaiseki's sister looked awfully similar to one of their ancestors, Pan. So, lack of a better idea, they named the girl after her. "So what about your rules?" "While I agree we mostly need to stay out of the spotlight, there's no need for the restriction on training students," Sun says. "You knew the exception. If he proves worthy, he can be trained," Kaiseki says. Kaiseki then attempts to walk past Sun, only to be stopped by a hand on his shoulder. "He will not undergo the trial yet. The sports festival is coming up. He needs to be present for that," Sun says. "Like I give a damn about some lousy sports festival," Kaiseki shouts. "Who are you to enforce any of the rules?" Sun asks. Kaiseki winces slightly. "You've always been the second strongest. You think now that you have status that you can push me around?" Sun growls. "My students are my responsibility. If you want to take them for a trail, you will do it when I say so. The rule dash. I don't give a damn about your rules," Sun shouts. "You want him? Fight me, right here, right now. If you win, then fine, but if you lose, I don't want to see your ass around him again." Kaiseki takes a step back, eyes widening at his older cousin. "What's wrong, Kaiseki? You are the one who's always going on about going back to the old ways, where the strong rule and the weak are subjects, always obeying your petty rules," Sun growls. The tension in the air roots Kaiseki and his sister to the ground, unable to move or breathe. Sun takes it a step further, eyes wild. Suddenly, the tension breaks and Sun takes a step back. The older teen's eyes go wide before he closes them. He focuses on breathing for a while to steady his shaking that Kaiseki and Pan can breathe properly. Kaiseki falls back against the wall. Most of the emotion was directed at him, so he took the brunt of the experience. "I'm sorry for that," Sun simply states. "A chain broke," Kaiseki whispers. "Yes," Sun calmly states, breathing deeply. "Why? How?" Kaiseki asks. "Not now. The students are worried and will come over here soon. I can introduce you or you can leave," Sun says. "Make your choice." Pan and Kaiseki stand on shaky legs, but stand their ground nonetheless. Sun nods and motions them to follow. Now in the sunlight, Kaiseki and Pan's silent armor stands out starkly against the gray of the storm wall. Kaiseki wore a suit of armor almost identical to the one Vegeta wore, while Pan showed much more of her legs and arms. She also sported blue wristbands instead of the standard gloves. "Everyone, these are my cousins Kaiseki briefs and Pan briefs," Sun states. "Say hello and be nice," he says with a pointed look at Bakugo. Everyone introduces themselves to the siblings, Midoriya going last. "Hey, are you two pro heroes?" Izuku asks. Sort of," Kaiseki responds. "Sort of?" Mina asks. "We don't typically do hero work, only when we are specifically requested," Pan explains. "What kind of hero work do you guys do?" Izuku asks, notebook appearing from nowhere. "The type that you guys aren't allowed to know about," Kaiseki says. "You're barely older than us though," Kirishima states. "Of course, our family gets their hero license when we turn 15, Kaiseki says. "Kombu is the only one who hasn't gotten his yet." "Why do you get a license so early?" Midoriya asks. "It makes life easier," Pan states vaguely. "That's enough, guys. Remember, today is for relaxing, so go have fun," Sun gently states before sitting himself back down. Everyone runs off once again, Bakugo climbing into the inflatable ball. The siblings sit next to Sun, watching everyone with a critical eye. Sun glances at them and takes a deep breath. "The green-haired one, focus on his energy," Sun states. The pair do as told. At first nothing seems off. An average energy level for a human. After a moment of looking deeper, however, they notice a huge reservoir of energy, waiting to be used, waiting to be unleashed. "It's amazing, isn't it?" Sun asks. "How?" Kaiseki asks. "That's a need-to-know basis. It's not why I chose to train him, however," Sun states. "Why then?" Pan asks. Sun is silent for a moment, a rare look of seriousness plastered on his face. "He's a true hero. Even before he had the power he does now, he would have given his life to save another," Sun states. "That's not much different from some of us then. He needs to take the trial." Kaiseki once again pushes. "No, not yet," Sun growls. Kaiseki looked at the older man. He could notice the slight shift in his demeanor. How the smile he wore looked less real now. He hadn't expected one chain breaking to affect him like this. Either way, if you want to test the waters and see how strong he is for yourself, I more than welcome you to do so, Sun states. And how would you propose we do this? Kaiseki asks. A sparring match. You guys are pro heroes, so as long as he uses his quirk under your supervision, it's not illegal, right? Sun asks. Technically yes, but it's more complicated than that, Kaiseki responds. Just forget about the complications of everything for a day. Hey Midoriya, Sun yells. The boy in question looked up just in time for the volleyball to smack him in the face rather hard. Yurikara and Mina rush over to him, the former muttering apologies as they help him to his feet. He brushes himself off before jogging over to the three Silents. Yes, San? Izuku says. You up for a little sparring match? Sun asks. Sure. Me and you? Izuku asks. Nah, you're gonna be sparring these two, Sun states. Midoriya looked at the two Silents. They stared back with hard eyes as they walked to an open spot on the beach. He could feel the ruthlessness coming from both of them, something that Izuku had only felt when Sun lost control of his power at USJ. Are you sure this is a good idea? Izuku asks. You'll be fine. Just remember your training and you can do this, Sun states, pushing Izuku towards the other two. Izuku hesitantly walks up to the two. Kaiseki eyes him critically while Pan prepares herself to fight. Izuku could see amusement in Pan's eyes, and her body language showed that she was overly confident. She thought she had won this already. Guys, Midoriya is gonna have a sparring match with my cousins. Quirks are allowed. If they feel generous, they may let you spar with them afterwards, Sun states. The group forms a makeshift circle around the three. Izuku could hear his friends cheering him on while Ida talked to Sun about the legality of this. Pan dropped into a fighting stance, and Izuku nervously did the same. Without a word, Pan charged Midoriya faster than most people could see. Izuku's training was the only thing that saved him, as he jumped quickly to the side. Pan wasn't fazed as she quickly twisted to press her attack on the poor boy. Izuku channeled one for all throughout his body. He was at the safe limit for him as of now. He blocked the incoming punches to the best of his ability. A few broke through his guard, but he remained rather unscathed. He decided now would be a good time to retaliate and reared his fist back, signaling Pan to duck, hopefully avoiding the blow altogether. She felt an impact on her side then. Izuku feigned a punch to deliver a powerful kick to her ribcage, making her slide backwards on the sand. Izuku didn't lose this moment. He pressed his attack further, alternating between all of the combinations Sun had taught him. Pan managed to block the first few attacks, but was soon overwhelmed by the vicious combinations Izuku used with methodical efficiency. Pan wouldn't go down that easily, however. She tanked another kick to her ribs and latched onto Izuku's leg. Grabbing his ankle with both hands, she began to spin the boy around until she had enough momentum to throw the boy into the air. She jumped to meet him at the peak and punch him back down into the sand below, but was caught off guard by a kick to the jaw. Izuku didn't get disoriented from the spin or throw. In a split-second decision, he used the momentum to launch a surprisingly powerful kick at the young woman's face, sending her flying. She's quick to recover and attempts to spear the green-haired teen into the ground. From there, it's a wrestling match, both trying to outmatch their opponent. It's Izuku who managed to get into the top mount position. He quickly brought his left hand to the woman's collarbone and swung his right hand back. They were both breathing heavily, and Pan looked determined to fight on, but her arms were pinned under Izuku's legs, and with no other way to fight back, she yielded. Izuku quickly got up from his position, blushing furiously, as he just realized he was almost laying on top of a girl for the past minute. Despite this, he moves to help her up, and Pan notices two things at this moment. First and foremost, she notices what Sun saw in this guy. He was strong and determined. Secondly, he was so freaking adorable. Strength and good looks. I know Dad and Kaiseki will probably be disappointed, but I honestly don't care, she thought as she took his hand and slowly rose to her feet. She turned to the boy and gave him a kiss on the cheek. See it like a prize. You are the first person to beat me outside of my family. Pan giggles as Izuku turns an even brighter shade of red. A few people in the crowd reacted, each one differently. Ida just looked shocked, while most of the other boys looked at him in jealousy. Mina looked at her with a plastered-on smile and a slight twitch in her eye, while Yurikara looked ready to pounce on the Scion girl. Thanks? Izuku manages to get out. Midoriya won. Kaiseki, you're up, Sun said with a slight frown. Izuku quickly got back into the circle and managed to get rid of him, feeling flustered and embarrassed. He faced Kaiseki, and they had a slight stare down before Sun told them to start whenever. Once again, they got into their stances. Kaiseki still had the same confidence as his sister, but it wasn't the same. His eyes weren't amused, They were calculating. It seemed like he was trying to peer into the other's mind. Izuku rushed him in that moment, hoping to catch him by surprise. Kaiseki lazily sidestepped Izuku, however, and delivered a sharp punch to his side. Izuku takes the hit. There was a surprising amount of force behind it, considering that there was virtually no momentum behind the swing. Izuku dug his feet into the sand and attempted a leg sweep, only for it to be dodged by Kaiseki. Izuku predicted this, however, and as he rounded to face away from his opponent, Izuku kicked off the ground in an attempt to deliver a form of axe kick. Kaiseki didn't see this coming and nearly took the blow straight to the face. He managed to move his face out of the way just in time, only for the blow to land on his shoulder, cracking his armor. The Scion winces but fights on. He flips away from the green-haired teen and powers up slightly. Izuku, not wanting to lose the momentum, leaps for a Superman punch. Their fists collide and send sand flying as they equal each other out. Izuku suddenly twists and grabs onto the Scion's arm. Then, using the other man's body weight against him, he flips the Scion over his shoulder and makes him crash into the ground. Izuku quickly makes to force opponent into submission. Going for a guillotine, he leaps onto the Scion's back. He finished the hold and hung on desperately. There was light, then heat. Izuku looked up to see a yellow ball of energy pointed at his face. Sun steps in, grabbing his cousin's arm harshly. "That's enough. We'll call it a draw," Sun states. Izuku moved to help Kaiseki up, but his hand was slapped away by the other harshly. Kaiseki stood and faced Sun. "We should take our leave. We'll be staying at your house, Kombu, since your parents offered," Kaiseki said. Sun grimaces slightly, almost imperceptible. "Okay, I'll see you then." Pan gives Izuku a wink before they leave, and they take off flying soon after. Once in the air, Kaiseki turns to his sister. "What the hell was that?" he asked. "You're just upset I found a worthy mate while you haven't," she said, laughing. "Him? Your mate? You know father won't be happy," Kaiseki states. "He did manage to beat me, and by our rules that makes him someone I can court," Pan shouts back, smiling. Never in Kaiseki's life did he think their own rules would backfire against him, but it happened on this day. The next morning, Sun awoke feeling slightly stiff. It wasn't anything unusual though. Everyone with a history of strenuous training or activity always wakes up slightly stiff. He stretches as he sits up from his bed, groggily looking at his clock. Realizing breakfast should be ready by now, he quickly gets up and stretches his legs. He hops into the bathroom to take a quick shower and brush his teeth before getting dressed for the day. Since it's Sunday, he'll be helping run the restaurant for the day. It shouldn't be too hard though. All the food will be mass-produced and needed to be made before everyone starts showing up. He was proud to be in the restaurant today. It was the day they opened it up to people who were struggling financially. He always felt happy to help them in any way possible. He was actually hoping to talk his dad into opening a new restaurant and staff it with the people they are helping. Hopefully it'll help them get back on their feet. Now dressed in black slacks, a simple white tee and slip-resistant shoes, Sun walks towards the kitchen. He can already smell the food his dad cooked up and has to keep himself from drooling as he gets closer. "Morning, dear," Sasha exclaims from the table. "Morning, Mom. Where's Pan and Kaiseki?" Sun asks while grabbing a plate from the cabinet. "Oh, they went to do some morning training. You know how they are," Sasha says, smiling. Sun nods and looks at the food still steaming hot in front of him. His dad had a soft spot for American foods, especially what he likes to call the all-American breakfast. Basically lots of meat and protein, and pancakes to top it off. Not to mention every student's best friend, coffee. Rumi had thought Sun was crazy for putting chocolate in his coffee, until she tried it herself anyway. The man himself is still stuffing his face, his mouth too full to talk, and since Sun's mom has a rule about talking with your mouth full, he doesn't want to poke the lion. Sun fills his plate and quickly eats. As soon as he finishes his plate, Kaiseki and Pan come in. "Kombu, can we have a moment alone?" Kaiseki asks, looking tired. "Sure," Sun responds. Pan's eyes look excited as they move to the living room. Sun sits on the sofa and sends a quick text to Rumi telling her good morning before giving his cousins his attention. "So what do you want to talk about?" Sun asks. "Midoriya," Pan exclaims. "Tell me everything about him." Sun looks between Pan and Kaiseki for a moment. The man looks like he's done with his life, while Pan is sitting on the edge of her seat with excitement. "Well, he's a good guy," Sun starts. "Not a mean bone in his body. I don't think he could kill a bug even if his life was on the line. Don't mess with his friends though. He wouldn't hesitate to defend them. He's smart, a hard worker. He puts too much blame on himself and is one of the most selfless people I know." "Why?" "See Kaiseki. I told you he was a good guy," Pan shouts at her brother. "Shut up. I never said he wasn't a good guy. I was just saying he hasn't earned the right," Kaiseki shouts. Well, according to our rules, he did beat me in combat, so that makes him worthy. Pan states. What the hell are you two talking about? Sun asks before realization dawns on his face. Pan wasn't walking towards Izuku with violent intentions yesterday. The glint in her eye he noticed was admiration and attraction. Oh no, Sun thinks as he puts his head in his hands. I want him to be my mate, Pan states in all seriousness. Pan, that's not how this works. Sun sounding just as tired as Kaiseki looks. Exactly, Kaiseki shouts. Then what do I do? Pan asks. Well, you can't just demand he becomes your mate. I wouldn't allow that anyway. Sun says. If he's going to be your mate, then it has to be of his free will. Easy enough, Pan states. If only she knew how wrong she was. One day later, Sun stands in the teacher's lounge, looking out the massive window as All Might and Izuku sit on the couch behind him. He takes his time to think over his words. All Might had been brought up to speed on his condition. He needs to know of the trial and all it entails, as does Izuku. This will be the real challenge. Toshinori, Izuku, you know everything and nothing of me. Sun starts. I feel like it's time to make it all come to light. My family, as you know, has always been what most would call superhuman. This fact has led many in my family to believe we are superior. Is that why the rules were created? Izuku asks, bright as ever. Yes and no, the rules started as a way to keep the peace on Earth. Sun says wistfully. The first rule is to keep our bloodline as secretive as possible, and the second rule is to keep our deeds in the dark so the population does not panic. Why do I feel like this is going to take a turn? All Might asks. The third and last rule was made generations after. It states that non-silence cannot be trained unless they complete the trial in front of a judge of strength in order to prove their worth. Sun states. That sounds ridiculous. All Might states. Indeed it does, but strength is everything to them. It was to preserve the strength of the bloodline and eventually keep us at the top of the power spectrum. I've always hated it, as has my father. Sun states. The two sitting think to themselves for a moment as Sun takes a seat in front of them. Sun winces slightly as a headache arrives. He breathes in his medicine until the sensation stops and thinks of his next words. The trial is split into 3 challenges, the first of which is where you show your spirit. The spirit to keep fighting even when the odds are stacked against you, to never lose hope, never lose your confidence. The second is a challenge of wits. You must outthink the smartest of us in a game of strategy and intelligence. The last is a trial by fire. If you succeed in the first 2, you will be sent on a mission. One of the briefs will accompany you. You will need to carry out one of the many missions they do, most of which are off-planet. Sun states. What kind of missions are these? Izuku asks. The kind where we keep old enemies in line and away from Earth. Sun states. Izuku pales as he remembers the tales of past villains that Sun's family had fought, the struggles that they faced even when wielding great power. Don't worry, Izuku. The hardest missions are done by the strongest of us. If it's something you can't handle, I won't stand by and let them send you. Besides, most of these enemies are very weak now. Whether it be old age or loss of power, I have only had to be called out once in my life. And that was for a mission on Earth. Sun says gently. Both All Might and Izuku breathe a sigh of relief at this news. Izuku can't help but wonder what this mission was, however. What did you have to do? Izuku asks. I had to take care of a research facility that was being operated by one of Dr. Jiro's followers. People will occasionally get their hands on his research and attempt to do what he could not. I was just a child at the time. Up against an army of men and robots. Sun states grimly. What is their protocol for this? All Might asks. Sun stays quiet for a moment, seemingly lost in thought. His face held the expression of someone reliving a bad memory. It all started when I arrived at the mountain base. Flashback. Sun's age 7. Sun landed at the base of the mountain. From here, he could see the entrance to the underground facility. There was no point in stealth. He knew. He had his orders. Eliminate the danger to the planet by any means necessary. So he ran towards the 3 guards stationed outside the entrance. They saw him, of course. 2 took aim while the other reported. Sun sidestepped many of the bullets, having to only deflect one of them. As soon as he was upon them, he kicked the first guard in range, then followed up with a leaping uppercut to the one next to him. He quickly knocked out the last guard, then regarded them for a moment. They were only doing their job. They don't deserve to die. Sun trudged inside, not bothering to hide himself, as he dispatched guards and researchers alike until he was in front of the man himself. Please, don't hurt me, he shouted to the kid before him. I can't do that, Sun stated. We can work something out. I can give you power. Anything you want I can give, he shouted, stepping back further. Sun leaped, kicking him in the stomach, sending the poor man flying through a door. You know too much of Jiro's research to be left alive. You're a danger to this planet and its people. You should have just thrown away the research when we first contacted you, Sun states as he walks into the room. It was an operating room of sorts, full of tables and supplies to operate on something anyway. It's then Sun notices an animal on the table, its white fur stained with its own blood. It was small, a little bigger than a human baby. It had a gash on its eye, still fresh and leaking blood. What did you do to it? Sun asks. You're worried about some animal, the researcher yells. What did you do? Sun grits out. The doctor then laughs, the way any insane man would when his world is crumbling around him. He abruptly stops and looks Sun in the eye. He's just an experiment, an animal with a quirk to help our research. It's not just what I did to it. Everyone here had a role in it, whether it be beating it into submission like the animal it is or making it give us the information we wanted. Not a single soul is innocent here, child. He spit out the last word. Sun saw red. He knew what was happening. He was losing control. The rage consumed him, and then it was dark. The next thing he remembers was walking out of the base, past destroyed robots and dead people. The animal Sun had decided to call Niza on his back. He remembered stopping at a stream not far from the mountain and desperately trying to wash the blood off his hands as tears sting his eyes. Flashback end. All Might and Izuku paled the further Sun went into his tail. Now that they were at the end of it all, Sun was shaking. Lingering regret at his actions that day still has an effect on him. All Might was terrified. This guy at the age of 7 not only defeated a small army of people and robots by himself but killed them. Thank God this kid was on the side of heroes. Izuku felt saddened, sad that the people died, sad that his friend had to do something like that at an early age. Sad that Suns had to live with that for so long. There's one more thing about my family rules. It's not one of the 3 major ones, but it does directly affect you now, Izuku. Sun says, looking a little sheepish. Remember when you won the match against Pan over the weekend? Yeah, that was a tough fight. Izuku laughs. Well, according to one of my family's sub-rules, it makes you worthy. Sun starts. She wants you as her mate, and nothing I have said has changed her mind. There's a moment of silence before 2 things happen. Izuku manages to go through at least 5 shades of red, and All Might seem to cough up a little blood from laughing too hard. What? Izuku shouts. I figured I would warn you. I convinced her she can't just claim you. Sun explains. But, a mate? Izuku shouts. My family tries to find the strongest people so they can keep the bloodline strong. I'm sorry about this. Sun says quickly. What should I do? Izuku asks. I don't know. I just know she probably won't stop harassing you over this. Sun states. Sorry, but it's time you got to class, Izuku. Rashi is a hard teacher and doesn't like tardiness. Right. Izuku shouts, running out the door. Sun now faces All Might, who's still laughing over everything. He quickly stops when he sees the serious look on Sun's face, however. There's one more thing, Tashinori. Izuku can't know about this. Sun states. What is it? All Might asks. If I lose control again, I won't snap back like I did then. The power has grown stronger since then. I want you to incapacitate me if possible, kill me if necessary. Sun states. Kombu, I can't kill you. All Might says, shocked. If you can't incapacitate me, then it's the only option. I have no morals when the power takes over. I will kill without hesitation. I don't want that. Stop me before I can do any damage. Sun states. There's a tense silence as the two eye each other, All Might's eyes wavering against the cold eyes of Sun. Eventually, All Might sighs. Fine, I'll do it, he states. Sun's eyes soften a little, and a small smile graces his lips. Thank you, Sun says. The bell rings shortly after the exchange between the two. Sun waves bye to All Might, who can only stare at the young man's retreating form. His only thought being that Sun can control his power if that day ever comes. Your form's all wrong. Do it again, Rashi shouts at Momo as she works on her staff combat. Rashi, having already displayed just how strong he was in his peak form, was still very strong even as a frail old man. He took notice of her weapon of choice fairly early, having memories of a certain black-haired child who favored the same. So far, Momo hasn't landed a hit on the old man, who seems to move just before she connects and scores a hit before she can recover. Come on, young lady, Rashi shouts, swinging his staff around. Momo grunts as she blocks the strike, causing it to glance off to the side. She spins around the overhead strike coming right after, and attempts to get close enough to score a decisive shot once again. Nice try, Rashi states, bringing the bottom end of the staff around and hitting Momo in the gut. Momo sits on the ground panting as Rashi sits across from her. What did you learn today? He asks. How not to get hit with a stick, Momo states. Rashi then uses the staff once again to deliver a light smack to Momo's head. Try again, Rashi states. Momo ponders the question for a moment, thinking hard about it until sighing in defeat. I hesitated too much against a stronger opponent, she states. Yes, what caused that? Rashi asks. Fear? No, Momo didn't fear the old man, overwhelming strength? Possibly. You think too much in a fight, Rashi states. In a fight it is good to have a plan, but you have to be able to improvise and adapt as the plan falls apart. Each time your plan started to fail you couldn't react because you were thinking too much instead of being in the moment and reacting accordingly. Momo just blinks, not believing that someone could tell that much just by a couple of sparring matches. She remembers, however, that he is a master in his style, and has probably taught hundreds of students. It's hard to break from old habits, trust me, I know. Rashi starts. You have a great potential, young lady. You remind me of an old student of mine. Momo chooses to stay quiet, feeling the lecture coming. You and him share many traits, your drive to be better, your intellect, and sense of justice, just to name a few. His father was also a student of mine who favored the bow staff. That's off topic, however, Rashi says. That kid grew into one of the strongest people on the planet at the time. In his teens, he was near invincible. I can see that same potential in you, young lady. Keep working hard like you are, and the results will show in due time. Without another word, Rashi walks away from Momo, leaving her to think about what the old man said. Rashi makes other rounds to where the other students are training. The students should be ready for the sports festival at the rate they are currently going. He notices a student with red hair who appears to have a hardening quirk, tanking explosions from the loud kid. Kirishima, right? Rashi asks. Yes, sensei, Kirishima exclaims, still taking the explosions. Nice quirk there. You have almost no mobility, however. It's the most important thing in a fight, you know, Rashi states. And could you please stop with the explosions for a minute and get back to your group? Bakugo huffs before walking back over to his area and resuming his activities. Rashi sighs and faces the red-haired teen once again. Why are you sacrificing so much mobility for the sake of defense? Rashi asks. My quirk lets me harden parts of my body to a certain degree, however my limbs get locked into the position they were in when I activate my quirk, Kirishima states. Why don't you harden everything but your joints? Rashi asks. Kirishima blinks for a second, like the thought never occurred to him before. Of course you would be sacrificing a slight bit of defense, but you could move effectively with your quirk activated that way, basically turning you into a walking wall, Rashi continues. Kirishima looks at his arm before attempting to do as the old man said. While successful, it required a large amount of concentration to keep his quirk active in such a way. He moves his arms a couple of times before testing his flexibility. He smiles as his arm moves like it normally would. Now instead of being a wall, you are a mobile tank, kid, Rashi says, patting Kirishima on the head. Thank you, sensei, Kirishima shouts. Rashi makes a couple more rounds, giving advice on how to better their technique to the students. After one final lap, he calls it quits for the day. Master Rashi, mind if we talk for a bit? Sun asks. Of course, Rashi says, putting his sunglasses back on. Classroom. So Midori, how do you think everyone is gonna do in the festival? Mina asks. Midoriya turns at his desk, making it easier to talk. Well, right now, I would say Bakugo or Todoroki. They have extremely versatile quirks that can make an impact on the surrounding area and are also extremely useful in combat, Midoriya states. Are you saying we don't have a chance? Mina says, pouting a little. I'm sure that's not what he meant, Ishido. He's just thinking rationally, Ida states. Yeah, I'm sure of it, Yurikara says. My guess is they have a combined total of around an 89% chance of winning. Since I don't know the quirks of the other classes, there could be some margin of error there, Midoriya continues. Midoriya, you can't look at it like that. Have some optimism, Ida shouts as Mina and Yurikara pout. I'm not saying we don't have a chance. I'm saying we have to work even harder to make our chance greater, Midoriya states. Todoroki has probably been preparing to be a hero for years now, and Bakugo has way more pure combat experience than anyone else in our class. The rest of us are starting around the same area, which means we have a lot of catching up to do before the festival. What? Midoriya asks. I can't tell if you were having another mutterstorm or if you were actually trying to give a speech, Mina states. A doctor, looking over files, brought to him by one of the many henchmen working for All for One, is disturbed by a knock. What is it? He gruffly says. Research papers. The boss thinks you would want to take a look at them, the voice says, sliding yet another file under the door. Take a look at them, more like do whatever it takes to recreate them or die. The doctor thinks to himself as he leaves his desk and picks up the file. He eyes the papers as he slowly makes his way back to his desk, expecting yet another dead end. It was then that his eyes widened. At least now, he knew he was safe from death. He quickly stashed the file for further research labeled, The Jero Project. Mina sat in class. Well, she was early today, so the lesson hadn't even started yet, but she was at class. Izuku had taken it upon himself to include her in his morning runs, if nothing else just for the company. She blushed as she thought of the young man she met almost a year ago. "What ya thinking about, Ashido?" Yurikara asks. "Nothing much, just thinking about sleep," Mina says dismissively. "Midori and his morning runs are killer. I can imagine. I haven't known him long, but it's easy to tell just how hard he works," Yurikara states. "It really is something, huh? To see someone putting in so much more effort than everyone else." "Oh, trust me, that's not even half of it," Mina exclaims with a laugh. "He trained for 10 months non-stop just to get here." "Really? I guess that makes sense. I figured his quirk did a lot of that for him though," Yurikara says thoughtfully. "No. Everything you see in him is pure hard work," Mina says. Aizawa sits up then, yawning slightly as he prepares his announcements for this morning. "As you all know, the sports festival is in a couple days. Today is your last day training with Master Rashi, so make the most of it. Also, you have a test today. Do with that information what you will," he states before laying back down. Sun then steps forward. "All right, everyone. Get changed and meet at the field. Me and Master Rashi have a demonstration for you all," he says before leaving the room. With Midoriya, after changing into the standard UA track suit and arriving at the field, he spots Mina and jogs over to her. "Hey Ashido, did you study last night?" he asks. "PSSH, of course I did," she answers with sarcasm. "You probably should've," Midoriya states. Yeah, I know. I just didn't have the energy, to be honest. "Would you mind doing a cram session with me before the test?" she asks. "Mina, you know I could just help you study after class if you want," Midoriya says. Mina gets a sly grin. "Oh, trying the old I'll help you study trick, huh?" she asks. Midoriya turns a bright red. No, I just don't want you to get a bad grade," he exclaims. Mina then smiles truly and pats Midoriya on the back. "I know, Midori, and I would appreciate the help," she says sincerely. "Midoriya," Ida shouts while speed walking towards the pair. "What do you think the demonstration is?" "My guess it would be a show of what we can accomplish if we continue training after Master Rashi leaves," Midoriya guesses, hand to his face. "I guess that makes sense. I was thinking it was something along the lines of showing us how far we still have to go," Yurikara says. "Honestly, it could be that too," Midoriya laughs. As the rest of the class arrives, Rashi and Sun make their appearance. Sun wearing the tried and true orange GI of the Sun family, while Rashi wore his normal clothes. "Okay, everyone, Rashi has something to say before the demonstration," Sun states, taking a step back. Rashi steps forward and eyes everyone in the crowd of students before drawing in a breath. "All of you have improved in your time training with me. You are all some of the best students and natural learners I've encountered. Some of you seem to feel like no progress has been made since you started training. Others feel they have made leaps and bounds. Just remember, a trainee will improve at a faster rate than a master, making leaps and bounds, quickly catching up to the ones they hold in high regard. Finally, students, eat well, learn well, sleep well, train well, and play well. This is the Turtle Hermit way," Rashi shouts to the students. "Yes, Master Rashi," everyone shouts. Rashi nods at them, stepping back once again and letting Sun take the attention. "All right. Master Rashi and I are going to demonstrate some of the Turtle Hermit techniques that I will be teaching you after he leaves, and also giving you a goal to shoot for. I expect all of you to be at this level or better by the time you graduate," Sun exclaims. The students smile in response as the student and master face off one another. They fall into their stances, and for a second all is calm. Sun suddenly charges at the older man, attempting to catch him off guard. However, Rashi sidestepped the attack and followed up with a powerful kick. Sun managed to block the kick and used the momentum to flip back into his stance. The battle had just begun. Rashi was the aggressor this time, flying forward at speeds no old man has any right to reach. Sun expertly avoids the punch thrown at him, but doesn't see the kick aimed at his side. It connects and sends the young man back about 10 yards. Sun skids to a stop, planting his feet in the ground, looking up just in time to block a punch from the old master. Sun knew what Rashi was doing, having been a student of his some time ago. The old man was using him as an example. Sun was so far one of the strongest people the students knew, and to see someone stronger than him in action, Not mentioning All Might would give them a more realistic goal to strive for. Because unfortunately, many of the students would not reach All Might's level of strength. Sun catches Rashi's kick and pulls the old man towards him, hoping to land a strike on the man's face. Rashi, however, weaves his head to the side and wraps his arms around the back of Sun's head, locking his grip. Sun knew there was nothing he could do at this point, so he tapped Rashi's elbow twice, signaling defeat. The students clap for the duo as Rashi untangles himself from Sun, offering a handshake to the young man, before saying his final goodbye to the class and promptly leaving. Rashi had never been good at goodbyes after all. Alright everyone, as you could see from the demonstration, strength is nothing without technique. Sun starts. Rashi is a master while I am still a student. He overpowered me with technique and wits, while I was forced to try and keep up. I hope you can all learn from this. Yes, sensei. The class responds. Good, now I think Aizawa has other lesson plans for you today, so I'll hand you all over to him now. Sun says, walking off. As the students talked amongst themselves for a moment before Aizawa had them all run laps. The students did not notice Sun, who walked around the corner and proceeded to hold his ribs where Rashi kicked him. No holding back, huh? Sun thought to himself. Villains, when will it be ready? The voice from the screen asked the old doctor. It should be ready by around 2 tomorrow. I wouldn't recommend using it for anything until we run more tests on it, he warns. It's disposable, a prototype, the voice says. Well, yes. It has a mission as soon as it's ready, the voice says. Yes, sir. The line goes quiet as the doctor looks to the pod once again, the heart monitors and life support having been cut long ago as the being no longer had need of them. He placed his hand on the glass shell and smiled at his creation. If we're going chronologically, I guess you're probably 28, but I'll just call you Rose. The doctor smiles. Later that day, Midoriya hums as he sits at his desk looking over his English homework for tonight. It was hard to focus on anything with the sports festival tomorrow. He could use 5% relatively easily. 10 is the absolute limit needed, but he couldn't keep it up for long. He would have to be smart about himself tomorrow if he wants to succeed. He sighed as he stretched and leaned back in his chair, old nerves and anxiety getting the best of him. Get it together. You're All Might's successor after all. You shouldn't be intimidated by a festival. His phone dinged, and he checked who had texted him this late at night. Son, Midoriya, you should probably go to sleep. Midoriya, how did you know I was awake? Son, I didn't. Midoriya, aw. Son, I figured you would be having a hard time sleeping. I know how nervous you are about fighting and people in general. Just don't stress yourself out over it. Just take a step back, take a deep breath, and smile. Midoriya, thank you, son. I'll take your advice. Son, good, get to sleep. Midoriya set his phone back down, homework forgotten, and laid down quickly, drifting off to sleep. The next morning came with Midoriya quickly eating his breakfast and sprinting off to school. He wasn't running late or anything, as he was simply just excited for today's events. He was the first person to reach the gates of UA, so early that they weren't even open yet. Ah, young Midoriya. All Might greets. All Might. You're here early. So are you, which is good, we needed to talk. All Might said, opening the gate. Okay. Midoriya says, following All Might. So I feel like writing out the talk All Might has with Midoriya about the sports festival is kinda redundant, because it's no different from the manga or anime, so we'll just skip over it. The locker room was filled with tension, as everyone put on their track suits in preparation of the sports festival. Midoriya was deep in thought. That is until a pair of shoes stepped in front of him. He looks up to see the face of Todoroki. They regard each other for a moment before Midoriya speaks. Todoroki, what is it? Midoriya asks. Todoroki is silent for a moment as everyone's eyes turn to them. Looking at things objectively, I think I'm stronger than you. Todoroki starts. Midoriya gulps as he lowers his head, because he can see where this is going. But All Might has his eyes on you, doesn't he? Todoroki asks. It doesn't matter, I'm going to beat you regardless. Todoroki starts to walk away, but is stopped by Midoriya. Todoroki, I don't know what you're thinking when you say you'll beat me, but of course you're better than me. I think you're more capable than most people, but I cannot afford to fall behind. There are people who believe in me and my abilities to win, and I can't let them down. I'll be going for it with everything I have too. So you better bring everything you have if you want to win, Todoroki. Midoriya exclaims. Todoroki turns and nods at Midoriya. But Kugu scoffs. Soon after, one of the attendants comes in and tells them that it's time for them to take the stage. Midoriya stands, Mina and Yurikara by his side, with Ida at his back. It's time they made their presence known to the world. With Sun. Why exactly do we have to be here, Kombu? Kaiseki asks. Sun and his cousin sat in the VIP box of the stadium, not far from where other high-profile heroes sat. I figured it would be good for you to watch and see their potential firsthand, not just Midoriya, but his entire class. Sun states. Oh, I get to see Midoriya kick some ass. Pen exclaims excited. Sun's sweat drops at his cousin's obvious crush on the boy. He could only hope she didn't throw a fit when it didn't work out. Villains. The glass canister opened with a hiss as the pressure was released, and the being inside was awoken. She stepped out, eyes glazed over as she looked at the doctor. Go to this section of the city, target this building, and leave no survivors. The doctor says. Did you hear me? Answer me, you damn robot! The doctor shouts. No, I won't, the woman says. The doctor was silent for a second before he walked over to a computer. You will do as I say, or else I will destroy you, he states. The woman goes to attack the man, but is stopped by an electric shock. Any move against me, or the boss is prohibited. Simply said your programming won't let you. The doctor says, typing a few more bits of code into the computer. Now go complete your mission. The woman shook as her body moved against her wishes. She no longer had free will. Thanks for watching. See you all next time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a like if you don't want to miss next part. And for now, you guys should check out this video. I promise you guys will love this.